Welcome to another episode of the Bastard Sermon. This is one of your three hosts, Cody Hucker,
Patrick Seta,
and Luke Young.
and today we have on Ethan Pettus, author and badass motherfucker. Welcome, dude.
Woo!
Oh boy.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Oh boy, my bar mitzvah's finally started. It's only been, 11 years late?
Right,
Interesting.
right. Okay, so let's
Are
plug your
you
books.
Jewish?
No.
I was about to say.
Do you ever
Not-
wish that you were? Do you ever wake up in the morning like, I wish that I could celebrate
I wish I was-
Hanukkah this year, and then you roll a sad tear down your
I
Christian
don't,
face?
I don't think anybody ever looks forward to Hanukkah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there were some people, because back in the day, like, they used to get, like, multiple presents on different days, didn't they? I was actually kind of always jealous about that. Like, man, they get presents early as fuck. It's kind of a selfish thing to be.
It seems like a grass is always greener thing, because like if you're Jewish, you probably only want to celebrate Christmas, and if you have Christmas, you probably want the present every single day, and either side thinks that one side's better. It's probably one of those. I have no fucking
maybe
idea.
that is. But you brought some books, and I'm really excited to talk about those. Which books did you bring today?
So I brought my first novel, Primitive War. It's a science fiction novel about special forces soldiers in the Vietnam War discovering dinosaurs and struggling to grapple with their own psyches as they attempt to figure out where the dinosaurs came from and the various implications that their governments have with the dinosaurs being there to begin with.
That sounds insane.
Let's
That
stop.
sounds crazy.
Let's
awesome.
stop for 1 second on that one. You have some really fucking dope art on these books that I see
Yeah.
here. Where are you getting the art on there? Because I'm an artist, so like that's
Yeah.
the part that's gonna grab me when I go to look for a good read.
Yeah, I'm definitely a visual-minded writer, so when it comes to like actually like self-publishing your work, you want your work to be as visually engaging as you would hope the writing would be, mentally visually engaging. So I actually got the cover artist for Primitive War in Louisville. His name's Justin Trevor Comley. You can find him at Justin Inkwell on Facebook. I just met him randomly after a rough night with this couple that owned a giant warehouse. I know that's like the starting of a story, but I'm going to try to like keep going straight.
Yeah, I got
Okay, that's
Get
fine.
going on a straight line. So he's doing all of the cover art for my Primitive War novels. He's already done the cover for the second novel, which I'm publishing next spring. But for the cover artwork of the field guide that goes with my first novel, that was done by the artist of the book itself. His name's Bruno Hernandez, and he's a death metal vocalist. So for that cover, we wanted to go with something that was appropriate for our musical tastes. We wanted something that could double as, an album cover if need be.
It definitely does. Both of the artwork on Primitive War, the artwork rather on Primitive War, and on the Primitive War bestiary that you've got here in front of us is fucking phenomenal,
You mind
man.
passing
Like,
those over?
It's really
yeah,
cool.
I was
looking.
just like, how do I do this without knocking everything off this table right now?
That's all right.
I used to be obsessed with dinosaurs too when I was a kid. Like I was so fucking into it, like Jurassic Park, just like every single like when you go to the kids library in the school or whatever, I
Yeah.
was always picking up the fucking picture books with all the fucking with the T-Rexes on it and all the skeletons and like all the books about archaeology and paleontology and stuff like this. This thing's pretty. The supplemental piece is still pretty big. You've got all these dinosaurs in it and all these like.
Who drew the dinosaurs out for you?
Okay, so the Primitive War Bestiary is a field guide that's meant to explain what all the dinosaurs and other prehistoric wildlife that appears in Primitive War, like how they behave and what kind of information has been gleaned from the field and the story of these animals. So the artist that did the cover for that book also did all the artwork inside of it, and he also did all the formatting. I just did all the writing and the,
That's incredible.
the actual
man.
concepts for what the animals looked like.
This looks like a ridiculous amount of hard work.
Yeah.
This is so incredibly detailed, and I got to notice that a little bit on the one that you gave me, your manifest. I didn't get to read it.
My manifest. Oh God! Don't call it that. Don't call it that.
Well, it's the book that you gave me that you're
Yeah,
writing.
yeah.
It's really descriptive. So I'm just only imagine how much work you're actually putting into like every little thing that you're saying, and then you have like a whole field manual. And how many pages is that?
So the first novel, Primitive War, is I think it's like 420-ish pages long. That was not intentional, but very welcomed. That took 3 years to write. So when I was in college, I was studying marketing, and I originally had had only ever really been interested in writing. Like, I was a really quiet kid in school. I started writing stories when I was in elementary school in, like, 6th grade. I was just obsessed with horror, and the only way I could really, like, grasp the actual horror that I felt thinking about horrific things was to actually express it through writing it, through describing the things that terrified me. So dinosaurs have always scared me, but they've also fascinated me because they're still just animals. They're not like these intangible, horrific
monsters under the bed. So
yeah,
to speak.
they're just
not mythical.
yeah, they're just wildlife.
They existed.
But they'll kill
Yeah.
the fuck out of you if they're around.
Yeah, so like that's a major theme in the this Primitive War series is the dinosaurs. I tried to represent them with the most current paleontological understandings. Like I did a lot of research into different university websites, reading research papers on things like whether or not a dromaeosaur like Deinonychus could climb a tree, or
So you actually put the work in for
That's what I'm
these
saying.
fucking dinosaurs. This isn't
So
just like
descriptive.
coming from your. I'm sure a big part of it's coming from like this fictional narrative that you're trying to write, but a lot of this is based in actual reality, which can make things so much scarier if you're really writing them the way that they actually behave and stuff like that.
This is
So-
incredible.
Thank you. So the thing with dinosaurs is that because we only have skeletons to go off of, it's kind of hard to just say that they absolutely look like this or that, because you have this concept in the paleo art community that they call skin wrapping, which is where when you try to illustrate animals off of only their skeletons and you just put a layer of skin over it, it can completely deviate from all the features that the animal has. So some artists have done skin wraps of like modern day animals where you have swans that look like they are these disgusting like snake-necked reptiles with beaks and long little spindly claws.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what that looks like, because I can understand where you're coming from, because I'm sure things looked really warped and weird.
Like that right there.
Dear God, that's like nightmare fuel when you put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. So like when you're looking at dinosaur skeletons, it's kind of hard not to just naturally put a skin over it because we think of them as giant reptiles. But when you look at their actual like evolutionary history and how they're so closely related to
Feathers.
Birds.
Yeah, birds. And just based on the location of a dinosaur on its, its evolutionary tree could determine what kind of osteoderms it has, whether it has proto-feathers or avian flight feathers or scales or leathery skin. There's this constant debate going back and forth about whether or not Tyrannosaurus rex was feathered or not, and that argument is just constantly changing.
Have you ever seen the reptile one that was preserved in complete stone?
Yeah, I actually
What?
have, yeah.
This thing's intensely
Oh,
crazy because
this-
it's
yeah.
got actual skin and scales and stuff like that. I mean, it's not skin or scales anymore; it's a fossil.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all the organic life has been replaced by stone.
But it's like right there, that rock it's showing you that like without a doubt is what it looked like.
I think both definitely existed because they have fossils of feathers that were
Yeah.
trapped inside of mud and stuff like that, and then they have other ones like this where they did have scales, and they found like the other ones that they found are just like pieces of feet and other stuff that were trapped in mud, but this one
Yeah.
is like a huge fucking dinosaur that they've got like actually encased in. I guess it fell in mud somehow, and that's the only way that it.
Usually most of the dinosaurs that they find preserved to that degree, I think, are usually found like sandslides and stuff. Like there's this really famous fossil, I think it's called like the Last Embrace or something, but it was a velociraptor and a protoceratops that got caught in a, or it's believed that they got caught in a sandslide and they got buried mid-combat forever.
That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that was the actual inspiration for the cover of Primitive War. Look up Velociraptor Protoceratops, or it might be Microceratops.
I'm just guessing on the spelling of all this. I'm sure I'm fucking.
No, it's
all
totally fair.
It's probably so hard to spell most of this fucking Latin.
Oh,
See,
is it
yeah.
that right there?
This one right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking intense. So they're
Right?
just right next to each other, and they've got all the dirt
Yeah.
wiped away just perfectly.
That's so cool how
Wow.
it's like it's the end of the world and they're just battling out.
Yeah, and it's like you don't know what they're fighting over. It's just they got locked in that position forever. So
That's
I wanted
awesome.
to.
I want to.
go on.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, do you want to go, man?
I was gonna say I wanted to back up to something that you had said earlier. You said that it took you 3 years to write Primitive War, the first novel. Now, when you say it takes you 3 years, how many hours a day and how many days a week is this? Is this a full-time job, or you're doing this in between college stuff, or how long exactly do you divvy that time up?
So, essentially, when I started the very first draft of Primitive War, that was basically 3 to 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for, I think it was like maybe a month and a half to 2 months, and that was to get a 300 and something page first draft. But
good lord, man, you work pretty quick.
I guess I do. It's just a matter of like having the actual like vision in your mind to actually manifest on paper. So long as I actually have like the general concept of a story down and the base skeleton of what I want to explore in a literary sense. But after I have that down, then it's just a matter of sitting down and typing. So since my first novel, usually what I do when I'm writing is I'll just write in 3-hour sessions a couple days a week because I have a life and I have a job. So, you know, I got to balance everything out. But like just before I came here, I spent 2.5 hours writing 10 pages for this short story anthology that's going to bridge the first Primitive War to the sequel that I'm publishing next year. The sequel took me 2 months to write the first draft, and that was 350 pages.
How many drafts after that do you do to get to the how many drafts before you get to the final product?
I guess I would say it depends on how much you have to do to the story itself, because most of the actual like revision and editing is going into making sure the story is cohesive and makes sense, and also making sure that the plot line makes sense. So long as you don't have to do like major plot revisions, then you can get through a draft and have it actually ready as a book within, you know, maybe 3 sessions of revising, editing, and rewriting.
Okay. Is this going off to an editor at any point? Does an editor look this over and like send it back to you and make revisions, or is that all just you?
So it's all just me, not by choice, but when you go into the publishing world, if you want an editor, you actually have to find one that's a freelancer, or you have to get picked up by a publishing house. So since I self-publish and I don't have the money to pay somebody per page they edit, and since I know my voice and what I want to convey and tell through my stories, I just kind of suck it up and do the work myself. But, you know, writing a draft, writing 300 pages can take maybe like 2 to 3 months, but actually sitting down and then looking at the document and finding everything wrong with it or everything that can be changed, and then going onto the computer and then looking at the manuscript revisions, and then looking at the screen, and then scrolling, and then typing, and then looking at the manuscript, and looking at the screen, and then scrolling and typing. That can take like half a year.
Right.
It just all depends on how much work you have to do. So the first novel took 3 years because I threw away the first 2 drafts of it. So I wrote it as an entire book, and I threw that book away. And then I wrote that book again differently, and I threw that book away as well. And then I finally wrote that book again a third time, and then I just had to go and get back into editing and revising.
Wow, man, that's a tremendous amount of work to get to these finalized products, and it's a good thing that you are, because if you weren't, then nobody would continue reading it. Because if you just release that first draft with all those mistakes and you don't figure out what words that you're doubling down on that you could fucking pull out of thesaurus and find something better, or like
thesaurus is the greatest tool that writers have ever had at their disposal. I will say that much.
Yeah, it keeps you from being like repetitive. It keeps you from being like using the same exact words to describe the same thing. You could insert 4 different words that all mean the same thing, but it makes your writing seem so much like more intelligent, so much smoother, and so much easier to pay attention to when you change up those words over and over again. And I'm sure a big part of that is finding plot holes within your own narrative and like eliminating those. I don't know what your process is exactly, but I've written a lot of things, like only like essays and stuff like that, and I always enjoyed writing when I was in like high school or whatever, but I've never done it on like a 400 fucking page book level. That's got to be an intense amount of work. It takes a lot of discipline, man.
I mean, it takes all my discipline, but at the same time, it doesn't really ever feel like work. I describe it as my second job because I make money off of it. But, I mean, every time I sit down and I start writing, as soon as I finish writing a full chapter or anything, it's just freedom. It's creating something and being able to go and look at it and reread it and know that I actually just did something, even if it's just in a 2-hour stretch and I have to revise and edit 3 more times until I'm happy with it. At least I got it done.
Now, you said you think of it as your second job because you make money off of it. So where the hell can people buy this stuff? Because I'm interested already.
So since I self-published, all my work's available on Amazon. I publish through CreateSpace and KDP, which is Amazon's built-in publishing feature. I've never really sought out traditional publishing because the way the market works is more catered towards what is immediately popular in the literary market. So since there's not a lot of paleofiction, which is the general name used for dinosaur-centric fiction, since there's no huge market for that right now, and there hasn't been since Jurassic Park first came out back in 1993.
Isn't that weird? Don't you think?
I
It's
think
such an awesome topic. Why isn't there more content in
dinosaurs
that?
rule.
Yeah, it's just
So-
like Jurassic Park and like what else? Like some books.
So this is the thing, is that like you have Jurassic Park and you have King Kong as far as films go that are like very noteworthy in modern times. Like you have plenty of stop motion movies from the 60s and 70s.
Cartoons too.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff, but like nothing really ever stuck as much as King Kong and Jurassic Park. But Jurassic Park is just because it was the first time somebody told a story about dinosaurs that was more than just about dinosaurs. Like the novel Jurassic Park
I love that
is,
book.
yeah, you know the iterations of the fractal that breaks up the entire narrative. Like each section in the book is, or each section of Jurassic Park is broken up into an iteration of a fractal, and fractals are like the major motif of the entire novel, because the entire storyline is representative of that concept in chaos theory, where as above, so below, one mistake leads to dozens of other mistakes, and so the entire book is just an expression of that, but it's told through the lens of a story about dinosaurs and Frankenstein-esque man's tampering with nature. But it's still so much more than that because of what the core of the story's actual skeleton was. It was the exploration of the fractal. That's why there's so many pages dedicated in that book specifically to Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum's character.
Yeah, he was a huge character in that.
They're just using the dinosaurs as a means to the end to actually get out that original idea.
Yeah,
is what you're
so-
saying. So it's not about the paleofiction itself. It's about the underlying core ideas.
Yeah, it's his exploration of what a plot structure could actually be, because it's told from so many points of view. You're seeing how every mistake leads to somebody else's mistake or somebody else's problem.
Right.
It's all about the chain reaction affecting everybody simultaneously. But also the dinosaurs are a great metaphor for the disasters that can be reaped upon man because of his hubris. But most people just see the latter rather than the former. So, like, as far as self-published works go, because there's just millions and millions and millions and millions of self-published just trash on the internet, including paleofiction, that it's extremely hard to find any kind of story about dinosaurs that actually says something other than, look, here's people getting eaten by dinosaurs. And that was all I ever really wanted from a book about dinosaurs, and I only ever got that from Jurassic Park, so since I didn't find it anywhere else, I decided to just do it myself.
That's really cool. So just all the substanceless trash that's out there, and you're just like sick of seeing it, and you haven't seen anything since fucking Jurassic Park. Like, you just, when you see something like that and there's this giant void, why not do it yourself? Like, if you could do it, why the fuck not? That's really inspirational, I think,
really
for a lot
is.
of people listening too. Like, if there's something out there that you want to see, there's something out there that you want to like hear, or something out there that isn't out there yet, and you have this idea for it, fucking go for it like Ethan did, because that could be something that leads you to publishing your own books and having these really cool fucking books and doing these awesome podcasts and whatever else you choose to do in the future, man.
So I will say one thing really quick about that. If anybody's actually looking for inspiration, this was my greatest inspiration throughout the entire process of creating anything. It's the central concept of magic as understood by, I think it's the left-hand path, which is
It's like Satanism and...
no, don't say that. Shh.
Okay.
Don't say that.
Chaos magic?
Yeah, there we go.
I have no idea what any of this is.
You don't know about chaos magic?
No, it sounds like something from Skyrim.
The
So
left-hand path isn't just one thing. The left-hand path governs every, like, I don't know. You get into it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
explain,
Well,
because I'm interested.
this is something I've read before, which is the general idea of magic is that ritual plus perception creates reality. So if you have a ritual set, if you continue putting work and time and focus into this pattern of behavior to manifest this vision, that's how you actually change reality around you. I never had this type of dinosaur book growing up, so what I had to do was I had to set forth the ritual of sitting down and writing. And I mean, I could describe like my writing ritual, I guess you could say, like down to the last detail, but the only thing that matters, I guess, is that I actually stuck to it and that I continue to stick to it. I mean, that's what I was just doing before I came here. So that ritual plus my perception of this actually existing, this actually getting created, having the ideas in my mind of what the story would be, of what the covers would be, of what the dinosaurs would look like, every element of it, that plus the ritual going into it is what led to that actually manifesting in our reality. So inherently, due to my ritual and perception, I have changed our reality by creating a new work of literature, if you want to call it that. But you can apply that to anything in your life, whether it's a podcast or a movie or a script or even something as simple as work. Like, I don't know, it's just the one thing that makes sense to me in terms of like self-motivation.
Did you get into all that through like Crowley's work or like Thulian like perspective shit or like?
So it's funny that you mentioned that. So I have my new horror novella that I just published here with me called Chrono Sodom, and there is a lot of symbolism in it pertaining to Thelema and Aleister Crowley and the concepts that he put forth in his religion. I'm not going to say anything about how I feel about his worldview and what Thelema means to me personally, because I would never identify as a Thelemite.
I said Thul. I'm sorry. I meant Thel. I always called it Thelma. I didn't know how to pronounce it.
I mean, like...
But I was just correcting myself for the listeners that heard me say it different.
Honestly, it's just impressive to hear another person mention it at all. The only time I really remember somebody else talking about it that I hadn't already been discussing it with, bring it up in a conversation, was a therapist, music therapist that's using a space at a brewery I work at.
My friend Chris Spalding that we've had on this podcast, the 3rd episode, he's really into like chaos magic and like Crowley's ideas and Thelma, and he's always reading like a new grimoire and like always like into this stuff, like just always like kind of nudging me into it. So like I get a taste of it. I don't know, like I don't want to come across as any like on any level as like super educated on this stuff. I've studied it like it's like a mile wide, inch thin sort of thing. I know like the surface shit about this stuff. I'm not at all like deeply involved in it or know that much about it.
This is the first I've heard of any of this.
Well,
it's super incredibly interesting.
Well,
it sounds interesting.
It's essentially like the nature of all the occult. It's, you know, the hidden knowledge. It's what you have to like actually seek out or have somebody else bring forth to you for you to actually like know of it or to learn of it. So when you say like a mile wide, an inch thin, like that's exactly how I feel too, because it's like there are people that dedicate their lives to just studying grimoires and trying to enact actual rituals, like that movie A Dark Song, like that entire concept, the concept of alchemy being the first step that you isolate yourself. It's a weird path to go down. For me, it was more just curiosity, because ever since I was a child, like the fear of death and the fear of the unknown is probably the most core essence of who I am as a human being. It's always there, even no matter how many fantastical things I can use to fill in that void of darkness that exists within all of us. None of it really comes close to actually explaining what the reality is. So that's why you seek out every possible avenue of information you can to understand what that is, whether it be science or pseudoscience like the occult. I'm not going to say that occultists are, full of shit because I'm not trying to get cursed or nothing. But
sometimes when those dudes start talking to me about cryptozoology, I'm like, settle down, buddy. Bigfoot is probably not real.
Hey, man.
Like they I don't know. It seems like sometimes
I didn't come on here to have my dreams crushed. So
yeah, I get it.
Okay, thank you.
No, but sometimes those dudes will like definitely go a little bit off the rails for me. That's why I could never really get into it. It's like what you were describing. It's always like a curiosity thing for me, something that I would just like flirt with the idea of, and like all this like weird, not like chaos magic, but like my shit was like theistic Satanism when I was a kid or whatever. I was really into like the idea of like demons and demonology and trying to but then I realized that you were just trying to manifest negativity, and that was all the theistic Satanism was, and that fucking and the Levian Satanism that has nothing to do with like the theism of these beings actually existing was just it's just a mirror of Christianity, and like I was like, none of this applies to my life anymore. But when I was a kid, it was something that it was very super fascinating for me, and like Aleister Crowley's like weird fucking lifestyle and having this crazy house that he would fucking have these insane orgies, and then like all these rituals that they would perform and like all this crazy shit was just like, I don't know, as a young metalhead that was fascinated by the occult and like weird left-hand path fucking ideologies and like religions, so to speak, or ideas. Like it was just fascinating stuff, but I never really started digging that hole to get like super deep into the caverns of any of this stuff. Luke, you look like you were trying to say something.
I'm pretty sure I was listening to the last podcast's series on Crowley when I made the call to you about starting a podcast.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, we were all talking about this earlier. So
last podcast is blessing.
I love that. I love that podcast so much.
That podcast got me through months of warehouse labor while I've been writing.
That's how I got into podcasts, was working in like a factory warehouse thing.
Same.
I didn't even know like they were as fun as they were, but it's the way of the future, I think. I really do.
My entry to it was I had just saw Joe Rogan's Talking Monkeys in Space, and this was 2009, I want to say, and I would have been in the second half of freshman year in high school, and I just saw it on Spike TV, I think is where it came out. And I was like, that was fucking hilarious. I was like holding my sides, crying, laughing the whole time. I need to find more Joe Rogan. So I type his name into Google, and Ustream comes up, and it says the Joe Rogan Experience podcast. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And it was like episode 2 live streaming now. So I click on it, and I saw the second episode ever of the Rogan fucking podcast live on Ustream. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Like, what is a podcast though? I don't understand. And then like Mark Maron had one and Kevin Smith had one, and that was it. I mean, there was a couple other people out there that might have had one, but that was it. And I was like always trying to get my friends into it. Like, you got to check out this new thing called podcasting. Everybody's like, shut the fuck up, Cody. We don't want to listen to fucking Joe Rogan talk for 3 hours. And I'm like, no, you do though. Like,
I can vouch
you don't
for that.
understand. I was like, you don't understand. Yeah, we went to high school together.
People are too scared of like how long they can be. I think that's what stops a lot of people.
Cody would talk to me and a group of others in a friend of ours' basement like almost every night, showing us some new clip from some new podcast from Doug Stanhope. Or Brandon would be showing us some new episode from the last podcast on the left. Like, they were my introductions to podcasts.
Have you guys ever heard of Boogie Monster?
No. What is that?
Boogie Monster is a podcast run by Kyle Kinane and Dave Stone. They're both comedians.
I'm in it already. I love
familiar with
Kyle Kinane. I've seen him live a couple times. Yeah, I fucking love Kyle.
So it's, to me, it's like the watered down version of last podcast on the left, because they attempt to do the same thing where they're like, oh, we're going to talk about all kinds of spooky weird shit, but in reality what they end up doing is they'll just talk for like 20 to 30 minutes about whatever food they've been eating on the road, and then they just start talking about whatever topic, and usually it ends up being like, do you believe in this? Nah, I don't really believe in this either. This is stupid. Why are we still doing this? But that's every episode. It's just them constantly like struggling with why they're doing what they're doing.
Kyle Kinane's such a funny comedian. Who's the other comedian that's on it with him?
Dave Stone.
I've never heard of Dave Stone before, but I got to check that shit out because I love Kyle Kinane, and I'm sure whatever he's doing is fucking great.
Oh, so funny story. Since I'm self-published, I have to do all the marketing and advertising myself for my books, and something that I was trying to get into was like advertising through like radio serials and podcast bumpers, you hear like rain and thunder, and they'd be like, oh, in the Vietnam War, dinosaurs eating people. Ah.
Yeah.
Thunderclap, buy on Amazon now. that kind of thing. I actually
we might
reached.
be able to work something out.
Yeah. You guys are probably about all I can afford.
I'd love to cut something for you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually reached out to the co-host of the Boogie Monster podcast, Dave Stone, and I was like, hey, I'm a huge fan of the show. I listen to you guys all the time when I'm at work. It helps me get through the day while I'm just daydreaming and thinking about what I'd rather be doing, which is writing. Here's what I've written. I'd love to pay you guys to do an advertisement, even if you guys fuck up every other word. Like, I don't care. I just think it'd be awesome to actually hear you guys shout out something that I made, even if I have to pay for it. Like, if you guys are into the idea, then I'll absolutely do whatever I can. And he gave me a price, and the price was good. And I was like, since you guys talk about like cryptozoology and the occult and all kinds of stuff like that, maybe you could do an episode on like dinosaur cryptids, like I think it's called like Mokele Mbembe or something. It's in the Congo. There.
How do you spell that, Cody?
What?
Go ahead, keep talking. I'm just gonna see if
so
I can
there's a lot of like modern day cryptozoology that's focused on dinosaurs in the Congo. It's funny. There's like entire stories about like colonialists that were off in Congo meeting tribes of pygmies that talked about finding giant. Oh no, not that.
What the fuck is that?
Mamba Mutu.
So what is a
It's-
cryptid dinosaur? Like,
like
I don't understand. Like, what's the difference between this dinosaur and a regular dinosaur?
So the difference is that people think that this dinosaur is still alive, and it's
Really?
it's
What?
considered a cryptid because it's believed
Oh,
to
like
still
the
be
Loch
alive.
Ness
Oh yeah,
monster.
so I
Yeah.
saw a Vice thing about this where
Yeah.
David Cho, the famous artist or whatever that painted Facebook's thing, he flew down to the Congo and went in search of this fucking this cryptid dinosaur that they said still existed in the Congo River, and he had been trekking through the fucking jungle for 5 days, almost had snakes almost kill him and shit, like all kinds of crazy shit happening in search of this thing before they finally gave up on it. But he's just so eccentric and fucking weird. Like he probably knew that there's no way that it existed, but he's just ready to fly down and fucking do this crazy shit to just see if he can find it or whatever for a Vice
Imagine if he
documentary.
did though. Like, what happens then?
He changes the fucking world forever.
What if he gets eaten? Like, what kind of dinosaur are they talking about?
So they're talking about a sauropod, which is like a brontosaurus, brachiosaurus. Supposedly Mokele and Mbembe. I'm totally fucking up that word. Oh,
It sounded legit. Search of the Congo dinosaur. I've never heard of this. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Do you like look up like conspiracy theories and stuff?
oh yeah. Way
Let's
too
get into
much.
this first,
Yeah.
and we'll get into that.
So Mokele and Mbembe was believed to be this like 30-foot long, 10-foot tall, basically like elephant-sized sauropod. And there was even a tribe of pygmies that reportedly ate a dead one, and everybody got sick afterward.
Dino sickness.
Yeah, dino sickness. Gotta get that dino disease.
It says on the Vice thing, the last dinosaur of the Congo with David Cho, and they break down like the I'm doing big air quotes for the audio listeners, the evidence that they have that these fucking dinosaurs still exist or whatever. And their description, legend has it that the last remaining dinosaur lives in the Congolese jungle. David Cho and his team of pygmy guides go in search of the beast, slicing their way through the heart of darkness to visit a reclusive tribe who claims to have witnessed the dinosaur's existence. After making sure of his intentions, the tribe's leaders offer Dave a ritualistic alcohol that he must drink before setting out to find the animal. Chaos ensues.
Must drink this fucking LSD
Yeah,
to
yep.
prove the
Yeah,
dinosaur
yeah,
exists in
that's-
the woods. Do you believe this dinosaur exists?
Probably not.
But you have a
Realistically,
hint of you kind of think that he's.
I
out there.
want to believe. I want to believe everything. I want to believe that things exist.
Like what
I
conspiracy?
agree.
So we were talking about conspiracy theories just for a second, but I want to get into it just for a moment. Like, do you have one that you believe in?
I don't know. I mean,
Some like Bigfoot shit.
honestly, I'm really sketched out by Antarctica. Like personally,
What do
like
you mean?
so. I think all of Antarctica is divided up into sections that are owned by different countries around the world. So if you were to look at it, it's like a pie chart that's just all sliced up evenly.
Like the U.S. and Russia?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's supposed to be the entire thing is like no one can assert manifest destiny and claim it as their
Oh,
own. It's a
word.
scientific research community. Like there are it's not necessarily divvied up by countries. It's just that scientists from all around the world go there to study, and it's a neutral area that people can study, and nobody's going to ever claim it as their fucking country because there's no motive to, unless they find a big chunk of oil there and shit. But
I think isn't that what they're trying to do right now? Is trying to drill up
I
there
mean,
for oil?
That's probably in the Arctic. I'm talking about like Antarctica.
Yeah.
So Antarctica, I'm sure there's probably going to be plenty of resources to extract from the ground once the ice finally melts within our lifetimes, if it does within our lifetimes.
Fuck, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just waiting to see all the new viruses, or not new viruses, but rather ancient viruses that have just been frozen for millennia,
Dude, it's scary
finally
as fuck.
thawing out.
Scary as fuck to think about.
Did you guys see this? The giant ice block that was like perfectly fucking.
Yeah, it's a phenomenon, but it seems like it's actually it
I
happens.
want to see it.
It's completely legit. I guess CNN and fucking.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's a perfect
It's like
iceberg?
a perfect rectangle almost. This right here. They found it as they were flying over doing, I guess, investigating climate change on the Arctic, and they found this rectangular, like perfect corners out there in the middle, and like of course people were like, oh, there's fucking aliens doing it. But apparently it's quite common. It's just this particular kind of ice shelf breaking off at a specific angle.
So the government says, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be black helicopters coming down to take your children if you actually believe that wasn't cut by aliens. They're all together. They're in it together as pedophiles and child molesters to try to fucking
Turn
take
the
over our
frickin' frogs
government.
gay.
Yeah, they're trying to turn the frogs gay.
See, it's not like something I would immediately look at and be like, oh, well, yeah, of course aliens are fucking around Antarctica. Like, that's where H.P. Lovecraft said they were coming from anyways. But, no, that's more along the lines of things where you look at, and my immediate reaction is just like, yeah, that would happen in Antarctica. Fuck you, Antarctica. You're fucking terrifying.
So you said H.P. Lovecraft, and Luke and I were talking about this because we both read over a little bit of this, as much time as we had. And Luke specifically said, like, there's a huge H.P. Lovecraft vibe going on
That's
with
what
this
I got
book.
from it.
So you
good.
say he's an inspiration, you would say? Do you
Oh,
mind if we talk
absolutely.
about your inspirations a little bit?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I guess that would depend on what I'm writing or what kind of writings we're talking about, because as far as writing goes, it's such an open-ended field. You have your concept of the voice, which is kind of like your internal monologue, but the internal monologue put to the written form, and that's how you identify a writer, is like, oh, well, I recognize that this is how he wrote this, so when he writes this, it's also a lot like it. So I have a standard for what this writer's voice is like, but I'm all about just fucking around with genres. So paleofiction dinosaurs, Vietnam War, put that together, and you can actually have something much more invigorating and exciting than just, random guys in the forest getting eaten by dinosaurs. And with the horror novella, that was inspired by beatnik writing. So beatnik authors like Jack Kerouac, he's very famous for his book On the Road, which he had written in one just long ago. I think it was like 2 weeks or something.
There's a movie that's out with Viggo Mortensen, right? Based on that book, is that correct?
I know there's a movie based on it, but
It's about the a nuclear apocalypse, right?
Oh no! On the Road was just it was just a memoir, pretty much. It was
Interesting.
basically Jack Kerouac. Back in the 50s, he was part of what you call the beat, or part of the beatnik culture. It was all these writers, most from New York, that had kind of made the natural migration to San Francisco after World War II to pursue like greener pastures, and most of their writing is very expressionist, I would say, but also minimalistic and raw. So think of like Bukowski, but if Bukowski were just like going through an entire road trip in one sitting, just writing his entire experience out. That's
Bukowski did more like poems and stuff like that, though, didn't he?
Yeah, but when it comes to Bukowski, like, I like his novellas more. I like his actual like narrative structure.
Didn't he start his shit when he worked at the post office? Like, and he hated his fucking life, and he thought that he would never do anything with anything. He was working at the post office till he was like 55, just belligerent, alcoholic, crazy man. And then
Honestly, I would say that's pretty much every writer I've ever been inspired by. Just somebody that was unnoticed for a long time and just still doing their own thing, and then just suddenly something clicks, even if it's posthumously. Michael Crichton got his start from writing pulp novels. So instead of writing like big science fiction epics like Jurassic Park and Andromeda Strain stuff, he would write
And Sphere.
yeah, he would write stuff like Action Man in the Forest fights off scorpions, or Action Man under the sea fucks a Nazi inside of a submarine. Like that kind of stuff. Wow, that unintentionally rhymed, didn't it?
Maybe that's the name of your next novella.
Fucking a Nazi in
Action
a
guy
submarine.
under the sea fucks a Nazi in a submarine.
Yeah, there we go.
It really slides off the tongue.
Yeah. No, that'll be my fourth wave ska band.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Gotta finally bring it back.
The new Mighty Mighty Bosstones, practically.
So when you're writing
I'm
these
gonna
stories,
throw
and
up.
I've always been curious, like how people keep a track of everything you're like. How do you keep track of like the characteristics of each character? Do you have like post-it notes hanging all over your room or something? That way you don't know, like, oh, I already said this earlier, like 200 pages ago. Or how do you not become redundant in your writing?
Or wait, do you live your life like Memento, where you write everything backwards on your arms so that you can read it in the mirrors in the morning?
Oh man, that would be a great idea. That way I would actually have a reason to look in the mirror.
It's a horrifying idea to think about it. I've never seen that movie.
It's great. They tell the whole story backwards. But back to your question,
Yeah.
though. Sorry, I don't want to detract
Go
from
on.
that.
Very
So,
curious. How do you keep track of your characters? How do you keep track of what they've said? How do you know you're not being redundant in your writing? I'm just curious.
Okay, so redundancy I think is more a matter of action and how you describe actions. When it comes to scenery, so long as you have the visuals in your mind, you should be able to find a million different ways to describe a singular object. Not that I'm about to go and describe like a microphone a million different ways, because who gives a shit about describing a microphone a million different ways? But when you're trying to describe like a setting or a type of action that's happening, that's where you want to have the most variety. You want to be the most engaging. So that I don't really have too much of an issue with redundancy, except for like when it's like primitive war takes place all in Vietnam. There's only so many ways that you can describe being in a jungle. That's when it can feel redundant writing it, but when you actually like finish it and read it and you put in the editing and revising to make sure that it's not redundant, it pays off. But as far as characters go, usually I just start off with kind of like archetypes. Like you have your typical characters in any story. Like you have the Joker, you have the straight man, you have the
Sounds like horror movie kind of tropes.
yeah, essentially. So for my characters, usually it's more a matter of like what kind of person I want this character to be like, and how that character, their bearing, their personality dictates what the rest of the story is going to be, what their interactions with everybody else are going to be, and ultimately what they can truly bring to the story. So like with my first novel, Primitive War, it started off with just, first draft, these are characters. There's nothing really important going on with them. There's nothing really deep in their heads.
That comes later in the later drafts, right?
Mhm,
When
yeah.
you flesh them out.
Yeah, so most of the time it's just like spur of the moment things. Like I try to always go running the day that I write, so I can kind of like just let my mind wander as I'm running, and just let ideas naturally come as they do, as you just move through your thoughts.
Do you keep those in your head, or do you jot them down real fast?
It depends on what the thought is. If it's like a major like plot element, I'll usually just keep it in my head and keep focusing on that for the next several hours.
Right.
Like I
Just
can't.
crafting how it's going to go inside your
Yeah,
mind until
exactly.
you actually get to a place where you can
Yeah.
start developing it with your words.
Yeah, but if it's like something spontaneous that I think adds a completely new element or facet to the story itself, that's when I like immediately find whatever paper I have and start writing it down. I was actually going through some of my stuff lately, and I found a box filled with just notes saying various random things that would make no sense to anybody unless they had actually like read my books. Even major story elements, just things I came up with randomly and wrote on a napkin at whatever restaurant I was working at the time.
That being said, like, do you have all these inspirations? Like, do do you have any specific characters that you've based other characters off of? Like, I'm a big fan of this guy, so this guy's has a little bit of this guy in him.
Yeah, that's pretty much every character I've ever written.
So who do you draw inspiration from? That be it H.P. Lovecraft or someone else or someone we haven't spoken.
Or are they just people in your life that you're just like around all the time and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, I think it's more a matter of musicians, honestly. Musicians, famous figures in history, and people I know. So when I first started writing horror stories when I was in elementary school, like I kept doing it all the way up until like high school. And I mean, by high school I was writing longer form fiction where I was writing like 100-page stories and stuff and not doing anything with them. But when I was in high school, I'd write short stories, and I would just, instead of coming up with new character names, I just ask people in my class, like, hey, do you mind if I use your name for a story? Like, I don't bother describing them unless it's vitally important because, at the time I would prefer that people just be able to put themselves into what the main character's going through. But now, like writing full-length novels and whatnot, when it comes to creating characters, I usually just go off of my heroes and idols. Something kind of funny is when I was writing the first draft of my second Primitive War novel, all of the main characters, or most of the main characters, as far as appearance goes, those were based off of musicians that I liked. So I would just have the musician in my mind as I was writing, and their personality can be whatever I want it to be or whatever serves the story the best. So there was this one character who is called Bennington, and he was named after Chester Bennington because, being a skinny white kid growing up in the early 2000s means that you're going to listen to Linkin Park at least 50 times. So I just, I wanted to pay homage to somebody that I had looked up to when I was a lot younger, even if I didn't really enjoy all of their music or their music's progression throughout time. I still looked up to them, and I wanted to pay homage to that.
That makes sense, because my next question was going to be, how do you name these characters? How do you find a name that's specific but not cliche?
I actually saw a name in the book that I was going to ask about, Logan.
Yeah.
Who is he inspired by?
So this is the funny thing about Primitive War is that originally started before it was even a novel. Back when I was in high school, remember how I said the 100-page long-form stories that I never did anything with? Primitive War is based off of one of those stories I wrote when I was back in high school. It was maybe 150 pages, and it's nothing like that now. But what I did at the time is I posted the chapters on this Jurassic Park forum because there were still dinosaurs in it, so I was like, I'll reach out to other dinosaur fans. And I had the idea to make it as interactive as possible, so I made a character forum, and I was like, make up a character, and I will put them in the story and do whatever I want with them.
Super cool.
Yeah, so...
was it on Reddit?
No, it was on this forum called Jurassic Park Legacy. It's not even online anymore. I think you can find a cached version, and there was even a sub-forum for it at the time, which was called Hunted instead of, Primitive War. So I kept some of the character names. So, Logan is a character that had been submitted, but, the character is nothing like he was originally.
You just took the name.
Yeah, I wanted to, give credit where credit was due, and I just wanted to keep the name. I did the same thing with a few other characters where I just kept the name and changed everything else, and I gave all the creators of those original characters a shout-out in the back of the book.
Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah. What were we talking about before that, though?
Right before that, we were talking about keeping all the ideas on Post-it notes and
how do you keep track of your dialogue, your characters, how you're not just being redundant is what we were talking about.
Yeah, so that's a matter of making sure that everything is setting up for an eventual conclusion. So you don't want loose threads hanging around. Everything a character says should have an importance to it, even if it's something as simple as a directive or an order. It has to actually do something for the story. So as far as writing these dinosaur books and all that, that's more a matter of what the actual arc for that character is and what I can do to explore that arc the most. So in the first novel, it's mostly sorry, I smoked too much.
You're all right.
So the first novel, it's mostly character progression. So pretty much every character you see in the first Primitive War novel has a purpose, and they meet that purpose by the end. Even if it's something huge and plot changing, or something that's just there but you're made aware of it. And
So you write their conclusion before you actually start putting in the story? Like before you start writing up to it, you just like, all right, I have this character, this is how I want it to end. So then you write based on like what that ending is going to be. You just write them to the story until they complete that goal.
sometimes the ending comes later. I mean, obviously you want to know the ending to a novel before you start writing it, but as far as like how you actually want the characters to end up, how you want their stories to end, I think that's where a lot of the editing and revising comes in, because you're like, oh, well, you know, I could change this conversation to this conversation, and that can open up these possibilities that do this for this character. And I just had to keep going through that over and over and over again until I was at a point where I was like, I did it. I got every character where they needed to be, even if it's way worse off than where they started in the story.
Do you ever get...
Oh, sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
My bad, dude. Do you ever get to a point with this process where you feel like... I don't know, it happens to me with like doing visual art sometimes, like when I'm doing a painting, where I feel like I could keep reworking details, but it's almost like a lost cause at a certain point where you're just like, I got to just throw this away and do a different idea? Or do you always make sure that you finish each one of these ideas?
So it's the latter. I make sure I finish every idea. That's the biggest piece of advice I give to anybody that ever tells me that they want to be a writer, or anybody that says that they like writing. I'll just ask, like, well, have you finished anything yet? And usually it's like, well, I got like 10 pages into this book, and then I had the idea for this book, and I got 30 pages into that. And then I had this other idea, and I wrote like 5 pages for that. But then I had this awesome idea, and I've written 150 pages for that. But then I ended up getting this other idea.
Yep.
And
It's the problem with creative people. They have fucking 1,000 different outlets that they want to go to, and they never finish one thing. That's why I gave up on the idea of making money off of making like paintings and stuff like that, because I do the same exact fucking thing, and the only way you can be successful is to finish your ideas over and over and over again, and like follow the fuck through. Like,
yeah, it's the creator's curse. I mean, with my first novel, I could have rewritten that book, 10 more times. I could have spent my entire life trying to write that book correctly, but it's more a matter of what feels, worth it in the moment. Like, when does it actually feel like it's cohesive and full enough to actually carry its own weight?
So do you ever feel like you get to a novel or a novella or like a short story or whatever you're writing to a point to where it's almost like, I'm sure you've had ones that you said that you complete all the ideas that you start, right? So there has to be a couple of those that you're not as proud of, or something that like, when you're making it that it might not be like as good as you're capable of, because you're just trying to finish these ideas that you've started. Do you ever feel like that? And another part to that question would be, do you ever just get to a point where it's good enough but not perfect, so that you don't waste too much time on this one piece? Or is it completely different than that?
So with the dinosaur books, with the Primitive War series, I actually have a timeline in my head of like when I want everything to come out. And so far I've been making good on actually achieving those deadlines that I've set for myself. But as far as like,
I don't mean like these novels or anything. I mean like other pieces that you might have done where you get them to a point to where you're like, it's good enough. I'm just going to call it finished or whatever, just to have it finished. Or do you like really spend the time and the effort to make sure that every single project that you put out is like the highest quality that you could possibly do?
Yeah, I would say so, because the only things I published were things that I've finished over and over and over again, to the point where I'm like, I'm finished with it. Like, I've finished with it for the 3rd time, and I'm finally finished with it. Like, that's what it feels like. I mean, I have a lot of novel ideas and script ideas and short story ideas that like just drift in and out of my mind every day. Like, every time I go running, I come up with new ideas. And, sometimes I write down novel ideas, other times I don't. I already have the entire plot line for my 3rd dinosaur novel planned out, and I have the plot outlines for my next 2 novels unrelated to dinosaurs planned out, and I have my next horror novella, the concept in my mind. And honestly, the only reason I would ever explore or attempt to write a book is if I thought that book should exist or
Was worthy of being published.
Exactly. Even if it's like self-published, because realistically I could have published the first draft of any of these, and you know, I could have been content with that, and I could have been like, hey, I have a book, I did a thing. But
So-
realistically, it's like you want to do
You want to do something you're proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
You want all of your creations to be the best they can be. I mean, honestly, when I got my first novel in the mail, I described it as getting like the birth of my first child, because that's what it felt like. It was 3 years of work. I mean, no pregnancy should last 3 years, but I'd be a swollen woman. But 3 years of work and actually getting a book that I had, you know, had
Busted
the rich
your ass on.
yeah, I had the ritual and perception, and now
Blood,
it's
sweat,
in
and
reality.
tears.
I just didn't know if you had like ideas that you'd never intended on like necessarily publishing or something. Just an idea that you wanted to explore and like complete. I don't know how writing goes.
Well-
I just know how like doing art goes. Like,
Are you
there's-
asking, like, is there projects that you work on that you just get burnt out on before you finish?
Exactly.
Like, you're like, well, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather work on Primitive War
That's
than
what I'm-
this other
That's exactly
book.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. I haven't had that yet, but I mean, I'm pretty focused on one thing at a time. So even if I have like a bunch of other things floating around my head, like different things that I want to pursue with writing, so long as I have one project in my mind to complete, I will see that to completion before I start the next one. So, I mean, I've gone through 3 drafts of the second Primitive War novel, but it's not time for it to be published yet, because first I have to publish the short story anthology that links the two. But I'm not going to work on anything else until I get the next book published.
Is the new Primitive War book you're working on a sequel or a prequel? And are you ever planning to do a prequel or / sequel if it's not?
So, the book that I am about to publish in December is the short story anthology. It's called
Right.
Primitive War Dispatches: The Hunting of Stalker Force. It's just about the special forces soldiers that are assembled as a team
Sorry
to
about this, guys.
It's fun.
I don't know if that's going to help, but
Just keep
go on.
going.
It's basically an episodic short story anthology. So every story, like what it would normally be like a chapter, is just its own little story. So they all are serialized. Like one story creates things that happen in the next, but it's not like a through narrative that you're actually engaging in the way you would with a novel. It's more like crack for reading. It's like you read one chapter and you're like, holy shit, that was crazy. Okay, next chapter. Holy shit, that was crazy. Okay, next chapter. But you're not really like going through everything that you would normally go through in a novel. It's kind of like the idea of having a TV show, but this would be like the time in between seasons, I guess you would say.
Or like if you had an anime and you had an OVA, something that would like expand on certain things that may not have to be necessarily attached to the main story of it.
Whoa, somebody just exposed their weeaboo power level.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
certainly.
god.
So if the first Primitive War is 420 pages, and the second one I'm assuming is somewhere in the same ballpark, what would be the like how you said short story, so how long is that for the in between novel that connects the two?
So right now the current draft is 170-ish pages. Most of the stories are about 8 to 10 pages long. So it's a decent chunk of reading material, but it's not going to give you the same thing as reading like an actual full-length novel, but it's not meant to.
I love short stories. I think my favorite short story book was Skeleton Crew by Stephen King. As cliche that may sound, but The Mist came from that, and that was like a 90-page short story. But they had other ones like The Raft, which was really fucked up. Have you guys ever read this stuff, The Skeleton Crew by Stephen King?
I read Everything's Eventual.
That's the other one he did, right?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't get a chance to read that one.
Oh, Everything's Eventual is so good. There's this one story. It's called The Man Black, and it's set in like the early 1900s, and it's just this little kid who's out fishing.
I've read this. I actually did read this.
Yeah?
But go on. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so this kid's just out fishing by a creek, and then he sees this man dressed in black that smells like brimstone walk up, and it's basically just this guy dressed in black talking to this kid, and
He's got fire in his eyes.
Yeah,
Slender Man.
well, essentially, it's literally the devil, and the devil's
Slender
describing
Man.
to this child about how his mom just got stung by a bee and had an allergic reaction, and she's dead back at your house.
Talks about eating the kid and shit, and
Yeah,
the kid has to
yeah.
make this daring escape by, spoiler alert, giving the fish that he caught to the devil and threw it away, and he ran away as hard as he could, knowing that the devil was right behind him with his big mouth and teeth coming at him, and he just fucking ran off. It was freaky story. It was a freaky story.
Like, I still have the mental image in my head from the first time I read that.
Me
and
too.
As you were saying it, I was just like, God damn it, why'd you have to put that in there again?
Well, there was another one. Oh, spoiler alert on the whole book, on both of these, because there's a lot of really good short stories in this. What were you about to say?
Fun fact for brimstone. Does anybody know what brimstone is? It's smoldering sulfur. So
Yeah.
it smells like burning farts is all that I want to say about that.
Yeah, the devil smells like burning farts. Watch out. If you smell burning farts, know the devil's lurking. But there was another one called The Raft, which was really good, and that was about these kids who ran out into the, like, it was cold February or something, or October, and they crossed this fence into this private land where there's like a lake, and there's like this wooden platform in the middle of it, and they swim out to it. It's all 4 kids, 2 guys, 2 girls, and this oil slick, this round oil slick is on the water, and if anything touches it, it sucks it in, disintegrates it. So there was at one point, like I said, spoiler alert,
I remember
girl,
this.
Yeah, some girl got her hair stuck in between the wood panels of the raft in the middle, and the oil slick sucked her whole body through those 2 slits of wood. If you ever get a chance, read this shit, because it is nuts. There was also another one, spoiler alert. Sorry, I know I'm keep going.
Just go ahead and say the whole book, Pat.
One more.
Just
one
tell
more.
all the
Just
stories.
spoiling all these
Just-
really old Stephen King stories that have yet to be made into films.
Yeah, but
Spoiler alert for this 30-year-old book.
Yeah, exactly. But there was this other one where it was like a 40-page like journal entry of this guy who used to be a surgeon, but he's now a drug smuggler, and his plane crash lands on this island with one tree, and it's all rock, and he's just writing in his diary about how he's starving to death, and he's trying to catch the gulls, and he breaks his fucking leg. Now, since he was a surgeon and a drug smuggler, he had access to heroin, and he had to amputate his own foot. And he just got high as fuck on heroin every single day. And you can see the madness as he's writing everything down. It's really fucked up. He'd lose his grammar and like proper sentence formations and shit. But he talks about how he eats his foot and he eats his like lower half of his body. And he keeps saying in the diary entry, I just can't eat my hands. No matter what I do, I just can't eat my hands. And the last diary entry is like, oh my God, I can't stop drooling looking at my hands. Let's eat. And that was the last diary entry. It's fucked up.
Let's eat.
I've
That
heard
is
all these.
fucked up.
But I've never read them myself, but I've heard all these stories explained to me by somebody else that was like, you should read this. But I'm so terrible at fucking reading things. Like, it's got to be like an audiobook. Or it's
I
gotta
used to
be-
love reading all the
I just-
time, but nowadays it's just so tough to find time to really sit down and dedicate myself unless I like stop myself at like an hour before bed and physically read, but then I feel like an old man. But I mean, what I read a little bit of this. Can I talk about this?
So I actually have the paperback copy with
The
me
paper.
too.
Oh my God, let's
Yeah.
take a look.
I saw the cover art and it's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was actually done by Bruno Hernandez, the same guy that did the cover of the Bestiary and did all the artwork inside of that. We're both huge metalheads. He's, like I said, he's in a death metal band down in Chile. So I was just like, hey, here, listen to some of this music, and here's my idea for the cover can be, and whatever you make, I'm just going to use.
What
And
bands were you listening to when you came up with this?
so it actually says in the back of the book,
Monomarth.
I gave a shout out to all the bands I was listening to. Most of them are local acts because, you know, working at a brewery, I see a lot of like black metal and doom metal and stoner metal, and I just, you know, I
Yeah, there's
love
a lot
it.
of sludge metal
Forming
in
the
your area.
Void, Engrave Darkness, Vermint.
Oh, those are our boys.
Vermint's great.
Vermint's going to be coming on in February.
Oh, I'm going to have to
Yeah.
give them a copy and tell them your music made this fucked up nightmare.
You
of a
should,
novella.
dude. They're really good dudes, those guys in that band. They'll love to read that shit. They're huge nerds. They'll be
listen to-
super into it.
Do you listen to Nithing at all?
Yeah, I actually saw Nithing at Urban Artifact before. I don't have any of their CDs. I haven't worked all of the metal shows lately. Like, I try to make sure I go to every one at my work, but I think they're the next, like, they're playing in the next metal show that we have. So I'll definitely check them out again. Try and make sure I get a CD.
Shout out to those dudes. I want to try to get them on because they're really good. Like every time I go out and see them, they fucking kill it. I just saw them at Will's 3-day event, and I saw them down at Urban Artifact also. And the 2 times that I saw them, they were fucking great. And it was shout out to Nithing. You guys should go check them out. Local Cincinnati black metal. And Vermin's fucking cool. And anybody else probably in the back of Ethan's book is fucking dope.
Oh, Engraved Darkness, I want to give a special shout out to my friend Johnny because he's a huge Dinosaur fan as well. And I actually just gave him a copy of Primitive War, the last show that he played at my work. Dude's band is fucking crazy. Like, there's these 2 songs that they have, Purity of Evil and Ritualistic Sins. Those are just so fucking nasty and groovy and just so dark and heavy, and I love it. Speaking of which, there is this metal artist I found on Bandcamp because you always got to keep searching, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's a never-ending search of new music, dude.
I think the artist's name is Grievous, and it's...
Like General Grievous?
Yeah, like Star Wars, but it's a one-man band. Like, I think he records every instrument himself.
Badass.
And then just puts it all together, and it's like some of the best, like, you know, contemporary black metal I've heard.
Grievous.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna check that out after the podcast.
That's where a bunch of like black metal bands get their starts from, is doing like either 1 or 2 man band things. Like Dark Throne, they've never played a live show ever. Like Dark Throne just all does. It's just Nocturno Culto and fucking Fenris, and they just record all the instruments and slap it all together. And then there's other bands like Zaxter and fucking I don't know, a billion band Leviathan that are just one man bands, and they've put all this shit together and done it all themselves.
You know how much work that probably is too? That's probably just the same amount of work as like a whole book. It's just ridiculous amount of time and energy spent on putting so much together.
Well, Zaxter and Leviathan are super prolific. Like they've got like a piece, like 20 albums. I mean, don't quote me on
20
that.
albums?
It's fucking craziness. Like
Holy
if you look
fuck,
up Leviathan,
by himself.
Like if you look up, hold on, I'll look it up real quick. Leviathan USA. It's something like that, and he's done it all by himself. They all have weird fucking like backstories, and I don't know what their fucking their music necessarily gets into. I've listened to a few of their songs.
There's a Wikipedia based on metal.
Yes. Yeah, it's called Encyclopedia Metallum that you can go to, and
that's
it's
so
like,
cool.
But look at this, they've got fucking like I don't know how many is that? That's like
holy shit! It's
more
it's
than
one
20.
guy. One guy wrote all of this music. Holy fuck, that's a lot of work.
Right?
Yeah, the guy's name is whoever this fucking guy is.
I bet they're like 20 songs each one too.
They did a Vice documentary on the dude, and he's like this weird, like he's a tattoo artist out of some part of California and got in all kinds of trouble for doing all kinds of fucked up shit. But yeah, man, sorry we got on this tangent about black metal, but when you started describing like one man black metal bands, it reminds me of a bunch of shit. Like I love all that type of stuff or whatever.
Yeah. Do you know the band Soulfly?
Yeah, I've heard of Soulfly before.
Sepultura, you know the lead vocalist Max Cavalera?
Mm-hmm.
He is one of my biggest influences when it comes to like creative output because he knows exactly what kind of themes he wants to explore in his lyric writing.
Like when they made the one about the fucking all their ancient tribal roots and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was I think his last album was Sepultura, and when he like Soulfly, every album is just him exploring different themes in his writing, but also just, you know, fucking around with all kinds of different awesome guest musicians and stuff and just doing his own thing because, you know, the guys in Sepultura didn't want to be making roots over and over and over again, but that's what Max Cavalera did. But he's still able to, like, have a fresh and invigorating take on every subject he decides to explore, whether it be the fall of Bethlehem to the Titan Kronos to genocide and everything in between that's good or bad. Just he explores everything, and I love that. I love that people can just like keep putting out work, even if it's like a one-man band or if it's just like an individual, somebody that can keep finding new things to say and still like have it within their wheelhouse, like have it seem natural for them to be talking about too.
Was Max Cavalera part of Sepultura when they did that thing that was like an homage to Clockwork Orange? Have you ever seen that before?
Was it like a concept album?
Yeah, it was a complete concept album that was totally devoted to Clockwork Orange. Like every one of the songs on the album was like Alex, and it was like Ludovico.
Oh yeah. That was back when he was in the band.
Yeah, so like he did shit like that to like really explore like weird ideas and concepts and like those albums. I never got as much into Soulfly, but I'm sure that shit's equally as dope.
I mean, it's not nearly as complex, but like the guitarist that they have now, I think it's this guy named like Rizzo something, and he's just trained in all these international styles of guitar work, and he is so fun to listen to. Like, you can tell that every time he's playing, he's just enjoying the hell out of himself. And Max Cavalera, anytime that he's, doing anything into a microphone, it's just pure rage and energy, and it's so fueling. Like, I cannot stress enough how important metal music is to my creative process. Like, I started off when I would write for those like hour-long sessions and whatnot, I would listen to like whatever felt appropriate, whether it be like ambient music or tribal music or jazz or Tom Waits or whatever else. But like after a while, it was like, what can actually make me feel like creating, what makes me feel fueled to create. And it's just metal music. It's every facet of metal music. It's every type of metal music. Everything is just like so invigorating, inspiring.
I hate when people say that they hate metal music because they can't understand what they're saying, but that's not the point, is it? It's the rage and the energy that comes with it.
It's the outlet for aggression that's completely like organic and not like violent. Like, you can let out your violent, aggressive, or for me, I'm definitely fucking putting whatever I feel onto other people with this, but for me, it allows me an outlet to not get like violently angry with people, because I can fucking headbang and I can,
get
like,
your fucking anger
mosh
out,
and
dude.
like just like get into something and fucking like let all the aggression out through the lyrics and the screams of somebody else and these fucking super shred guitar parts and these crazy bass riffs and these crazy drum tempos. Like,
I feel like anytime I ever played metal or anything, like wrote music, it just is like puts you in a different mindset, and it's undescribable really unless you actually write the music yourself or write music or metal.
It's super cathartic. Like, you just get a release from it.
I think it's like spiritual in a way. I would not like saying like in a real religious way, but spiritual in a way. Like, it really affects your emotional state and just what you're feeling at that moment, and it really has an impact on you, I think, in a different way that most people can really relate to. I guess that's hard to explain to our guests who may not play music, but our guests that do listen to metal or actually play it at all, they'll understand what we're talking about.
See, my thing with metal music is I think you're either exercised by it, not like exercise like run exercise, but exercise
the demons.
Yeah, it's cathartic. It's purely cathartic, but also I think it's either cathartic, empowering, or it's like damaging. Like, there are some people that they hear metal music and it's just like, what you described, nails on a chalkboard. This is hurting me on a spiritual level. I am hurting because of this music in my presence. I cannot accept any such thing in my life. I cannot accept that these such things are being explored or even being treated by creative types. But when I think of metal music, I think of, elegant compositions. I think of orchestral design. I think of primal energy and power. I think of the strength that it exudes through it. Even if it's discussing the most heinous subjects, it's still all about just the energy that you're feeling in it. And that energy, hopefully for most people, would be, empowerment, some sort of strength. Because, I mean, if you're listening to the war cry of, an expert musician that's been owning his craft for his entire lifetime, why would you not feel empowered hearing that? Why would you not be empowered hearing somebody, I don't even like saying scream, because the metal vocalists I would describe it more as roaring. It's like listening to human dinosaurs. It's just hearing.
That's a good point. It's a good way of putting it.
How do you not hear somebody do a full volume, like, roaring death growl for 15 seconds straight, diaphragm like slowly folding in on itself? Like, I play didgeridoo. I've been playing didgeridoo for like 8-ish years now, I think.
You just blew my fucking mind. You played didgeridoo for 8 years?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I've never once met anyone who's known how to play a didgeridoo, let alone has touched one.
So, like, with didgeridoo, you have to do like a lot of diaphragm work to actually do like percussive rhythmic playing. So when I hear a vocalist do like a 15-second long scream at full like power,
roar.
Exactly, roaring, like not screaming, they're roaring into a microphone full power. 15 seconds straight. Have you ever tried to do anything with your breath for 15 seconds straight?
Yeah, absolutely.
fucking difficult.
I'm very familiar.
Yeah, so like didgeridoo playing, like I've learned from experience that like doing something that long takes a lot of power and focus, and hearing other people do it that have become experts at doing it and having their voices go through, you know, whatever space exists between my eardrums, whatever they're doing, their voice is moving through me, like that is fuel, that is power, that is, you know, that is pure magic.
I love everything that you had to say about it because it completely encapsulates how I feel about, like, I want to just say this really quickly because we're at about our halfway point. We'll take a break in a second, but it totally encapsulates everything that I feel about metal. Being a metal musician myself, like I play a lot of like thrash and fucking like I don't just anything metal related. Like I love playing it. Like it's a great outlet for me. Go out there and try to learn a death song or a Slayer song. Go out there and try to like sit down and play that if you're one of the people that think that it doesn't take skill or ability or that it's just noises. Go out there and try to fucking scream for 15 seconds and make it sound like something. Go out there and try to play those bass lines. Go out there and fucking try to keep up like with the tempo that drummer's playing at and perfectly hitting every single note, and then go try to do it with 4 or 5 dudes all together at once, and then tell me it doesn't require fucking skill. It's something that it's a release for me, but it's not just a release. It's something that's like, it is like this elegant composition that you were describing.
I'll tell you what, there's no better feeling than getting together with a bunch of friends and you actually mesh well together musically and everything just comes together and all the timing is perfect. There's no describing it. There really isn't.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it really feels. You put really good words into everything that is metal there, so I appreciate that. But we are about our halfway mark. We're actually a little bit over. But when we get back, we should talk about that show that you got really hurt at, that you told me that one time at the bar when we met.
Oh, yeah. I didn't get hurt at all. I hurt somebody else.
Yeah,
save it for the
second half, and then we can get into our videos of the week, get some weird shit going on, or we don't have to. We'll get into it. We'll be back.
Party.
All right, guys, we're back. Let's get right back into that Allies Aside story.
So Ethan, when I first met you, like I feel like legitimately talking to you, it was at your work, and then you told me that you like knocked someone out or something. Can you tell me this story? Because I think I remember taking a picture with this guy, and his eyebrow was split the fuck open. He had blood all over his face.
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah, unfortunately it was. So, I think this might have been like the 3rd time I met you when that show had happened.
Dude, I'm a piece of shit for not remembering.
Nah, I mean, like, most times were usually prefaced by, you know, alcohol and weed, so
yeah.
You're forgiven for not remembering.
Okay.
I don't remember the first 2 times.
Okay.
But I do remember the 3rd time, because that was I think the show for your first EP or your first full-length album.
I think that was our 3rd EP. It was the big CD release show. Was like 2-3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that was
was
that one.
the Thompson House.
Yeah.
So I was just in the mosh pit. I can't say what the crowd size was, and I'm not going to estimate because I don't want to like hurt any feelings or anything. But I was just in the mosh pit, and I was up in the air, like about 3 feet off the ground. You know, I'm a small guy. I'm like 5'8" and 160 pounds maybe. So not a lot going on, like actually moving other people. I'm more just bouncing off of people, and I just get tossed up, and it's fun so long as you don't get like trampled or anything. But I made the mistake of having my elbows at 90-degree angles while I'm 3 feet off the ground, and I pivot at my waist, and as soon as I pivoted, the momentum of where I was going in the air, as soon as I turned, my elbow immediately connected with this dude's eyebrow and just immediately hit the ground, like instantaneously. And dude's brow swells up to like the size of at least a lime. Not like the really tiny ones, but like an actual lime. To maybe the size of a lemon. Splits open in the middle, which I had never seen that before. I didn't know that was an actual thing. I didn't know you could split a brow open just by hitting it. But, you know, when you got sharp-ass elbows.
Oh, my God.
So I was with David, the the clean vocalist.
David Townsend.
Yeah, so I was with his friend Graham at the time, and
Fucking Graham.
yeah, fucking Graham.
Love that dude though. Go on.
Yeah, I miss that guy. So as soon as like that guy goes down, people start crowding around him, and I just kind of like look back and look down my elbow, make sure there's no blood on it, but just kind of rub it either way, and walk back up to Graham. Yeah, and we just like music never stopped. It was just guy hits the ground, and then I just moved back up to the front of the stage like nothing happened, and turn around and see security coming back and shining lights in his eyes, and he's completely unconscious. His lips are moving, but he's not like saying anything. He's just kind of like fishtailing around with his limbs.
Now wait, you didn't hurt your fucking elbow at all?
No, I was fine.
Okay, dude. So
elbows are powerful, man.
So
Krav
listen though,
Maga.
if you hit this man in the fucking the top of the head to knock them out, you must have hit him hard as fuck.
It split
Dude,
his
yeah.
fucking brow.
I
Dudes
mean,
don't go
His
unconscious.
bone, I remember his bone was showing when he took. He came
No,
up to me. He's like,
you're
"Let
a-
me take a picture." I'm like, "No, you look fucked up. You need to go to the hospital." And you could see the white on his skull. It
Dude,
was
if-
kind of nasty.
Oh my god.
that part of your head's
think he
pretty
broke-
hard. It's not easy to knock somebody out from hitting them in the brow. Like,
See, like that's the thing when you're at a good show and there's a lot of energy going, and it's accepted to be thrown and to throw other people and shit, and so long as you're not throwing fists or purposely throwing
Right.
elbows. But it was literally just like turning at the wrong moment and a guy colliding at the wrong angle. But I just went right up to Graham and I just rubbed my elbow, and I was like, you see the security taking that guy away? He was like, yeah. I was like,
whoops.
Whoopsie.
and he just like looks at me, and then he like extends his hand in the little rocket power thing and just woogity, 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 woogity. I think it was like next day that guy took like a picture and put it on Instagram of him in the hospital.
Yeah,
And
because he was
said-
in the hospital the night before. I remember him saying that specifically because he broke his thumb. He had
What?
a cast on his thumb on his
What?
arm, and then he fucking split his head.
Yeah.
Are you
I can't take
missing
the-
out pieces of the story?
No,
Like, did you just
no.
brutally assault this guy in the pit?
It turns out he
No.
like fucked his girlfriend or something, and he'd been like
On
scouting,
accident, I'm sure,
just
right?
scouting this
Uh,
man out the entire
You don't
time.
fuck a guy's girl on accident. That's always purposeful.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Dark.
Luke just said that in a way where he was just like, from all the dudes' girlfriends that I've fucked in the past, from that place of knowledge, you were
That's
absolutely
not
right. You
true.
don't just
Yeah, but your grin says everything else.
That's not true.
Luke. You want to tell us a story or two,
Yeah,
bud?
you got something you gotta
No,
get off your
sir.
chest.
No, sir.
Feeling guilty right now? Do you have that weird feeling in your stomach like butterflies? Like
I
you just got
mean-
caught?
We're all animals at heart.
Luke wants us to move on so hard, but that just makes me want to
He's like
stay
looking at
right
everyone with
here.
shifty eyes, like
So,
shit, right?
Stay right in
your
the pocket.
book, Kronos.
Oh, it's not the worst
so
thing that we're going to
guilty.
be discussing tonight.
Oh, I'm sure. Dude, that is I've always been curious about that story though, because I remember seeing that guy and he was fucked the hell up, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing, man?"
Yeah, I
It's
never got
just-
to shake his hand or anything, or like, realistically apologize. But since he said the next day, like, everything was amazing, it was the greatest show ever, I ended up in the ER. I could just, if I were to meet him, I could just shake his hand and be like, "You're welcome. I did that for you."
I actually
wasn't
believe
purposeful, but-
that he might listen to this one day. And
Oh,
then
now
I
I'm
wonder if he'll
sweating.
say anything. I
He's
mean,
gonna come at your fucking neck.
Oh my
Could we-
god!
you,
no.
you saw his post, the best night ever, so maybe he'll be like, "I can't believe that was you, dude.
Well, no.
We're totally cool, man." We're
Well, no.
totally
Now the
cool."
long-term damage is set in, and now he's like, "Well, I have all these medical bills. Like, I keep running into walls.
3 years
and,
later, I'm
I keep-
still paying.
like,
I keep forgetting my car keys every time I leave the house. I don't know what that's all about. Oh yeah, that Allies a sideshow.
Damn.
Yeah.
If I
That's
ever
ridiculous.
get my hands on him.
If split his eyebrow.
If only I had short-term memory still.
Hit that guy so hard he lost one chromosome.
Well, that was an interesting show because I fell off stage that show, and that fucking sucked. A lot of people got hurt at that
I
show.
have told a lot of people that story.
Dude, it was the
I've
worst.
never mentioned names, never mentioned band name, nothing. Just, one time I was at this show and I saw a thing, and I also put somebody in the hospital the same night, so I'd say it was a good day.
Man,
What's the thing that
interesting.
you're talking about that
So,
you saw?
so it was an interesting show because like both my parents came. They never go to shit. And
Your
so,
parents were there?
both of them, yeah. And they've been
Oh,
divorced
this
since I
gets
was
so much
2.
better.
And then my uncle and my aunt was there. There was just like so many people that have never come to a show came to this show because it was that release. And I remember during our interlude, there was this fucking big ass dude sitting in front of me, like big motherfucker. And I was pointing to him like SEAL Team 6 kind of fucking hand signals, like I'm gonna jump on you, like I'm using both hands, like finger walking, jumping into my hand, like I'm gonna jump on you, all right? He's like, yeah, thumbs up, gives me a thumbs up. I fucking jump. The dude fucking ducks out of the way
What a
instantly.
dick.
And I fell like 8 feet into the concrete floor. I ran into the green room on the side. I puked all over the floor from how painful it was.
Concussion.
Well, I mean, that would be like the second time I've had one during a show. Because like what you were saying, Brad one time clocked me in the head, knocked me out mid-show. It was really shitty.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because every time
Yeah,
Pat tells
Luke's
this
fucking
story,
like going ape shit again.
thank God we have a video record of it, because whenever we talk about Pat being grievously injured at a fucking show, it's every time Luke has this look on his face like he's seen the best comedy special of all time.
Luke, do you fucking hate me or something, dude? Like, the fuck?
No, I just love physical comedy.
You're
It's
sick.
It's just vicarious living. He's
But
just
yeah.
imagining
I
it.
mean, like in my head, I'm just imagining you like,
Dude, it was awful.
fucking yeah, and then you just dive into this.
So can I tell you my side of the story?
I'd love to hear your side because I'm sure
Okay,
it's way
so-
more embarrassing.
Okay, so this was my perspective. So there were like maybe 6 people in the very front row, like not the entire front row.
Yeah,
Not-
yeah.
like
But
I
they're just in that group.
Yeah. It was like 6 people directly ahead of you, and there was definitely a big guy there. But like, what I saw was you motioning at all of them, like crowd surf time. Like, I'm going to jump, and you are
God,
all
those
going to
fucking
carry
assholes.
me. And I was like, I don't know how.
all 5.5
What do
of
you
you.
think the logistics of this are? But if he's gonna go for it, then go for it. So like,
No fear,
the
dude.
thing is like the next row of people are like 5 feet behind them. So I was like, I don't know how they're gonna like continue this wave and actually like keep him on the ground. Like, is he just gonna like tea kettle forward and like land on his head or something? But instead,
I totally did. Spoiler warning.
yeah. Oh. Okay, so I think what happened is they thought you were saying that you were going to jump over them. And
That's exactly what they told me after the show.
oh.
They picked me. They said, "Dude,
Confirmed.
I'm so sorry. I thought
It's
you were
real.
going to jump over us."
Oh my god, it's real. It's real.
I was like, "You."
Is this why Pat? Is this why when we try to get you to read stuff out loud,
I
you
fuck everything
stumble
up?
over him?
Dude, I could have been. Like, I hit my head hard. I puked.
Dude, no. All right, so this is still what I remember, and I can't speak for my memory because all of the things have been done
love
to my
you so
brain over
much.
time. But like, I think they saw that you were going to jump over them, and then you jumped over them.
Ethan, hold on.
but-
Luke? Can you stop having a fucking asthma attack into
Jesus
the microphone?
Christ.
You fucking psychopath.
Stop drinking water while laughing.
Like, that's all I can fucking hear over Ethan's trying to tell us. Can you get it
He's
together?
literally
Yeah, face
crippled.
the mic
he's,
so-
he's bent in half, just like
God.
I remember Pat was bent in half when he hit the ground.
Dude,
Because
no fucking joke.
I remember you landed like right on your lower back, but you were like folded in half, like your legs went up, and you just like
Dude,
landed.
I never thought hitting the ground
I
would
didn't-
hit so fucking hard as it did that
I mean,
day.
like I didn't hear it, but I know that everybody felt it simultaneously because there was just an immediate like numbness in the crowd, like
Yeah, I remember.
what just happened? What just happened? But like everybody was still playing. That's the thing. That's a fucked up thing. Everybody was still playing the entire time. All your bandmates were watching as this was happening and unfolding, and you could see it in their faces. Like I
They
remember,
said nothing to me after the show, by the way.
Dude,
Like,
not like any. Like,
it was so fucking embarrassing at that moment.
Your posture right now just screams embarrassment. Like you have your shoulders together and like your hands in between you, and you're just like, I could see you like
Oh, dude, the cringe
turtle
is
retracting.
hard. The cringe is hard.
that is still like the penultimate metal experience I've ever had in my entire life for like everything I've ever seen. That is still like the penultimate metal moment. and man, I didn't know you threw up afterward.
Oh, dude, like instantly. As soon as I ran in that room, I puked like everything up. It was not good. I drank a lot before the show, so I just did not give a fuck while I was up there.
Dude.
But damn, my dad said he didn't see it though, so thank God for that, right?
Okay, so something else I remember was this was back when you had your Hitler Youth cut. You had like the whole like side swipe.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I remember.
Oh, so my hair fucking flung everywhere as it probably hit the ground, dude. Yeah, it was long as shit. Are you looking this up right now?
Yeah. I want to see what your haircut looked like, Pat.
Patrick, I
know
swear to
it
God,
is.
I love you. I swear to God, I do.
Yeah, you love my pain.
Like, it was like this, but like the longer kind.
Yeah,
where
I
it,
had like
goes down.
So it's like I cut all my hair off except for the top of my hair. Like you could definitely get a strong man bun out of that shit.
I have not laughed that hard in so long.
You know,
Wow.
all it took was a story about your friend
Wow.
getting brain damage to make you laugh that hard. We know it really tickles you inside, but
Wow.
If he were to tell me a story about
And
you
it's-
getting
no.
fucking annihilated, I would lose my mind.
That's
in your
not true.
face too.
That is not true. Luke is concerned when Cody gets hurt. Like, are you okay, dude? Like, I wish I was fucking there, man.
I mean, like,
But
look
when
at
it's me,
Look
It
at
is
his face.
true.
it's
'cause-
fucking Joker, his hyena laugh.
Hey, I laughed when he told the story.
Dude, there's so much innocence in his face, though. Like, how can you not?
in my face.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Have you ever listened to this podcast before?
This is a far from innocent man,
I believe it.
especially with his shits.
I'd take some nasty monstrous shits.
You
Frosted.
Radioactive.
Yeah, like it's borderline.
So
hazmat.
radioactive that if a group of any sort of animal came into contact with it, they may grow into forming some sort of martial arts type of group that fights crime. You would say
Oh, wow.
that kind of radioactivity.
Yeah, it's not good.
Luke smoked so much weed before this fucking podcast. He's about to black out from laughter.
His eyes are like watering.
Did you hear his
I
description
was
he just
crying
gave?
that whole time.
He fucking laughed hysterically at me hurting myself.
And then there's
Fucking
another story.
I've laughed at it a lot of times, so I can't fault him for
It's
that.
a funny ass story, dude. It's
It-
probably one of the
dude.
most embarrassing moments of my entire life.
I'm
No
so
joke.
sorry. I
It
just
was
got so weak.
I mean, it's
Dude,
hilarious in
no.
hindsight.
All right.
Like, it's a funny story in hindsight.
Okay, no, so you still finished the set.
Oh yeah.
That's all that matters. You finished the set.
Damn. I
That was the
fucked
second to
up,
last
though.
song, but as soon as you like got the microphone in your hand again, you're like, "This is our last song."
Yeah. I was so done, dude.
No
They wanted to play like
explanation.
3 more songs after that, and I was like, "This is it."
No explanation
God.
for what happened. Just this is the last song. But you did it. You did the last song, and
Yes.
it was good.
He has another story that he's told before about getting like just fucking macked in a squash by a fucking bass.
It was like your situation where like it just happened, like you
Macked in
just
his
Yeah.
squash.
inconvenience of timing and
Yeah,
where you're
yeah.
at. But I think it was at the Backstage Cafe, and Brad Hester,
Fuck you.
that motherfucker, he took his bass head, he did a bass flip, and I spinned around, and I just happened to meet the neck with my temple,
Ooh.
and it knocked me out instantly. Like I fell down, got back up, and I thought it was like 3 songs later where we have like this synchronized dumbass jump on the where we jump to the left or some shit. And I had to get it together for a second. I just got back up, and I finished the set, and then outside, man, I kept puking. I should have gone to the hospital for sure.
Fuck
Damn.
yeah, you should have, you maniac.
Yeah, it was bad times.
Dude,
Yeah.
only time I remember like hitting my head and actually passing out from it was when I was a kid, and that should explain everything.
What happened?
Oh, just like mom dropped me and I hit my head on the concrete.
Were you a certain way
Oh my
before
God.
that happened, and then like it sparked creativity in you? Because that
I mean,
happens to so many
Very
fucking
pleasant,
people.
innocent young man, and you hit your head, and then you're a dark, violent, gory writer.
No, I think that was from when I was in first grade and the horse tried to eat my hair.
What?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did he eat some hair?
Oh yeah.
Did he take some scalp
that
off?
moment in life, like really.
You know, when the
hit
horse,
ya.
the moment in your life where the horse eats your hair.
It really stayed with you.
Oh, dude. You know, eventually when I'm done with dinosaurs, I'm just gonna focus on like writing horse horror.
Terrible.
Dude, that would be something interesting, though.
Equestrian
Think
horror.
about that.
All right, no. So, you ever been to like Mammoth Cave down in Kentucky?
Yeah. I'm
Is
sorry.
that a weird way to start this story?
I'm setting a premise up. No, I'm sorry. It was
Oh
something
my
that I
God.
typed in. That,
Okay.
hold on, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it. Go on, though. Go on.
Okay,
go
Sorry.
on.
There's this place called Horse Cave, and I don't know why, but whenever I think of Horse Cave, I just imagine like
Horse cave.
inside of it, it's just a giant pit of dead horses, and that's just where everybody takes their horses and throws them out when they're done with them.
What?
Or
Are they rotten or are they bones?
I mean, I would assume that it's constantly just like festering at the top, but if you go down to the bottom and like actually go through the like layers of like congealed fat and ossified blood, you'd get down to like pure bone and all that.
That's the
But-
mind of a fucking writer, ladies and gentlemen. He
Yeah,
didn't
there
just
you go.
he didn't just have it all, but he set this whole fucking cavern up inside my head. I can see it right
Yeah.
I
now.
feel like I'm
But-
there.
But no, like
Start a podcast, Ethan.
Start a podcast.
Start a podcast. You're good with your words. Anyways, keep going. So
Yeah.
there's this horse
I'm
cavern
starting a
at Mammoth
Patreon
Caves.
right now. I'll come up with the podcast name later.
Fuck yeah.
Patreon first.
Bam.
So my other idea with what the fuck this horse cave is, because I've never been to it, because you don't go to horse cave and like come back the same person, right?
Who goes horse cave?
I mean, Mammoth Cave. Mammoth Cave is exciting. You're going back in time, but like horse cave.
that shit's crazy.
Why are there horses in a cave? What are
would
they
be
doing in
scary.
there?
That would be
So
scary.
if it's not the disposal idea, then what I imagine, just by nature of a cavernous setting, is a hairless horse with, you know, horse legs, like normal horse legs, but 8 of them, and they're angled like a spider's. But
fuck?
instead
That's
of
fucking horrifying, sir.
but
a
instead
horse with spider legs
of
with hooves.
well, the thing is that it's a horse pretty much shaped like a spider, like horse body, horse head, but
Spider legs.
horse
Horse
legs,
spider legs.
just bent and twisted into the shape of spider legs, and instead of hooves, just human hands.
4 legs.
And they don't like eat people, but if they find people in there in the horse cave, they'll just like scurry along the walls, and you'll hear their fingers like going through the dirt.
They have fingers, not hooves.
No, he just said
they
human
have,
hands
yeah.
on the ends of
Dude,
instead of
what
hooves.
the fuck?
Yeah. So
Do they have dicks?
Oh, I
Would
mean,
they rape you?
I mean, it's Kentucky. We already know that's a thing.
Is it like a Cerberus's head of dicks, like 3 flaming dicks?
So human hands.
Oh yeah.
So they
what,
could give you a hand job.
No. So what they do is they just like come down from the stalagmites and stalactites, and they just come up on you and they just caress you gently. They don't.
What?
They don't do anything aggressively.
Sexually?
Not sexually either.
Like, are they
Like,
masturbating with
they're
their human hands?
They're very visibly erect the entire time, but they never use it on you. They just
Wait, they have
touch
so
you
they have
all
a
over their
horse
fingers.
rocket.
oh yeah, you know, horse cannon.
So it is it sexual if they have a boner?
I mean, they're not doing anything sexual though. It's just like
They're touching you
they're
like-
fondling you.
That sounds sexual.
I mean, it's gonna be upsetting either way.
It will be.
They might enjoy it.
I'm
but you
already
won't.
upset.
I'm trying to not get fondled.
But
Don't go to
these
horse
horse
cave.
hands. What the fuck?
Don't go to horse cave.
Do they neigh like as they're scurrying across?
Maybe
the
that's
wall?
what you hear echoed throughout the cave when
Nah.
you go in there.
Nah, they just whistle. They just whistle.
Imagine getting bucked by that creature.
Well, it would be hands.
Slapped.
You just get hardcore slapped with the power of a horse.
Dude, have you ever heard of people like getting kicked in the head by horses? Like,
Oh yeah.
Dude, that terrifies
I
me.
grew up in Kentucky. Did any of you guys grow up near like horse territory, horse farms? or
Recently,
anything?
I lived on 5 acres of land, and we had 2 horses, and they always bucked like crazy. Even though it was like a 20 and a 30-year-old horse, female horse, they scared the shit out of me. Absolutely. I think horses,
Horses
are
are wild.
underestimated. Jesus Christ, Cody.
This
Oh,
kid's
hell
about
yeah.
to get fucking.
Why are you sitting there,
bucked.
kid?
Okay, buddy. So let's set this up. So since you brought this up, we got a video.
Videos
this
of the
little
week.
kid getting
Alright.
close to the ass end of a horse. All right, let's see where this goes.
This is a compilation
Oh god.
of horse kicks.
Oh, in the shin.
Broken fucking leg.
In
Wait,
like,
what's the
was,
next one?
Was that the shin or was that the kneecap?
Let's go ultra slow mo for it. I want to see this kid get just
the instant replay.
destroyed by this fucking horse leg in the slowest motion possible.
Stay out of horse cave.
Okay.
This kid will never.
This
get
what
near
this
another
what happens
fucking
with the
horse.
horse
Hold on.
hands.
Okay, it comes up.
Oh, in the knee.
Like that was so fast.
knee.
That was so fast. Like you couldn't really see the impact. You could only see the force of impact.
Can-
You could see how it affected the rest of his body. Oh,
Look this up, Cody.
Ow.
What is the amount of force a kick from a horse is? You know, word that better for me. What is the force generated by a horse with a kick?
Force of a horse kick. A kick to the upper back answer. That's a really
Oh
tough
my
question to answer because a
God.
horse can kick A horse's kick can exert anywhere from 0 to more than 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch.
That's the weight of a car.
It depends on how hard the horse wants to kick, is what they're saying. But it says that 2,000 pounds of pressure per square inch is the max that they can kick.
One of the Google search
Good
options
Lord.
is what people ask is like, can a horse kick sideways?
The fuck?
That's so stupid to me. I don't know.
There's a whole compilation of horses kicking the shit out of people over
Ethan,
here.
are you taking horse notes right now?
Oh, yeah, so I have a tongue twister in my head, but there's no way I can even say it out loud
Say it.
without writing it first. How much force could a horse kick with if a horse could kick with force? Nah.
Say it faster.
No, I
try
can't say
try
that
it one
fast.
time.
How much
force could a horse kick?
Cody,
Man.
say it.
How
Nobody-
much force could a horse kick with if they could kick with force? Is that what you're trying to say? If you write it down, I'll be able to say it. I just don't know.
See, that's exactly
How
my problem.
much force can
Go ahead.
How much force can the kick of a horse?
Tell it to me and I'll type it out and then we'll try to say it.
How much force can a horse kick with?
So stupid.
If a horse can kick with force. This is upsetting. I hate these things.
How
Okay.
much force can a horse kick with a horse can kick with force?
How much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force? How much force could a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force? How much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force?
How much force can a horse
See,
kick with a
it's-
horse can kick with force? How many? I can't even do it a second
How
time.
much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force? How much force can a horse kick with if a horse kick with force? What?
Can you do it, Ethan?
That one time you walk into the classroom where the kids have helmets on, they're trying to read out loud. It's just what I felt. How much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force? How much force can a horse kick with if a horse
Faster.
can kick with force? How much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force?
How much force can a horse kick with if a horse can kick with force? Bam. Almost.
How much force
Foreskin.
can a horse kick with a horse that can kick with force?
Fuck! Pat definitely got his head hit pretty bad when he fell off that stage.
How much force can a horse kick with if a horse kick with force?
And Luke smoked himself retarded.
But at least we answered that question.
Oh my god, I just laughed.
That was
hard I
good.
burped.
So let's check out some videos real quick, and then we'll get into some crazier shit.
Where do you want to go first, buddy?
African man having an unusual dish. What's that?
Oh, God. All right, let's see.
So there's this guy sitting on a beach, and he's digging up sand, and he's got the Minecraft health bar underneath him. He
acquired a block
has
of
2
sand.
handfuls of sand, and he's shoving it all in his mouth, all of it, and he's like pushing it through with his fingers. He's eating sand.
But the look of focus.
He is not fucking phased by this sand challenge.
Oh, I want to barf.
Taking a whole mouthful again a second time.
I want to barf so fucking bad.
This dude
That
is
is-
getting this sand, licking it off every finger with the
Oh,
old
is he swallowing
hillbilly
it?
napkin.
Hold on. Does he swallow it?
Bro, look. Yeah, he's
He's
swallowing
getting a
it.
third.
What?
Can you
third serving.
imagine this?
What does this do to your insides when you swallow sand?
We should Google it.
It cannot be good for you.
Hold on. How many? Does he get another one?
Do you guys
I gotta
think
know. What the fuck is he
African
eating?
beaches are cleaner than American beaches? Because, like,
People
It
eat the
does
trash.
not
California is
justify
disgusting,
eating
just saying.
sand.
I'm sorry, we're all talking over each other. What's that, Ethan?
do you think African beaches are more disgusting than American beaches? Or at least do you think the sand is of a lower quality in Africa than the United States?
Even if it's better
I-
and the beaches
like,
are cleaner.
Sand is sand. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's say,
So-
like, what do you mean?
sand is sand, but pollution is
mean,
different. Like, it depends on
exactly.
the area. So it just Africa is an enormous place with a fuckload of beaches. So to say, like, overall, if they have more dirty or not, you would have to
Well,
visit every single
yeah.
beach on the entire coast of the continent
Damn, we're
of
getting
Africa.
real literal with
Well, I
this.
think there was like a study released recently of how much microplastics are actually in the sand. Like, I think it's like 90%, or not 90%. It's like 50 or 40% of the salt that you eat has microplastics in it.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm assuming that a lot of because it's broken up shells, microscopic shells. What are you typing? What hooins?
What? How?
When you eat
What
sand?
hooins?
What happens when you eat sand?
What
But yeah, I
howins?
think it's just a combination of microplastics and then just crushed up shells for the most part.
This is not good for you by any means, but it is also not bad for you unless you eat a lot. That guy ate a fuckload. It is a weird question, kind of, but eating too much sand can cause abdominal pain, diarrhea or vomiting. That dude fucked his stomach to the core.
How do you digest sand?
You don't. That shit's gonna get wet and caked up and get real thick inside of his fucking throat.
A grainy poop.
Okay, so like hyenas,
Sandpaper poop.
When hyenas shit, because they eat bone
Yeah.
and they digest bone, when they shit, it's like chalk. It's like super calcified.
Is it white?
Yeah. So like
white hyena shit.
Kids could draw with it. Like,
What, that they use it as chalk?
yeah.
Kids
I mean,
use
I'm not gonna
hyena
name
poo.
I guess
countries.
I guess
I'm not
that's
gonna name
true.
names, but like that's something I heard.
The
I mean, I
kids
believe
draw-
it though. They draw
But
with hyena
Kids
shit.
drawn on the sidewalk with shit chalk. Nothing like hyena shit chalk to really bring out the creativity in a young
Hey,
man.
I guess it's
like
free.
I said, I want to believe in everything, right?
I guess it's free chalk, right?
Yeah. So like, how would you get diarrhea from sand? Like, how does it come out in liquid form at that point? Like
Wet
is it
sand, maybe?
Maybe.
Like corn comes out
think it-
fully.
Yeah, but it's
usually.
not sand.
It just irritates the fuck out of your body, it seems like, and your body just wants to get it out. So it's gonna diarrhea is like a quick evacuation method for your bowels, and vomiting is a quick evacuation method for
I'm just
contents of your stomach. So I assume that's why.
I'm just imagining, like, you know how they use like sand blasters to get paint off buildings, like doing that to the inside of your toilet.
Or the
That's what
inside
Oh
I'm
my
picturing
God.
in my head.
the inside
like,
of your
just-
asshole. Talk about hemorrhoids, my guy.
Sandpaper ass. That'd be the new disorder. Sandpaper ass. You get
Good Lord.
sandpaper burns on your asshole from your grainy shits.
Yeah, my asshole's 1,000 grit, so I'm,
You're
I'm
gonna have
ready
a
for
calloused asshole.
my asshole is ready for jail. Yeah, go ahead, try to get it, boys. You'll lose at least an inch of dick. It'll fucking sandpaper right off in 3 strokes, fellas.
They fucking put their
It's a
dick
real
in
rock
your
polisher.
butt. They
Yeah.
pull it out and they're gonna have like fucking 2nd-degree burns on their shit. That's so radioactive and hot in there, dude.
You could probably light a match off this shit that eating sand will do. You know, be so grainy and coarse and thick. You light a match off that fucker.
I mean, it would at least be good enough for mortar. You know, like you can at least use that to patch buildings. You just gotta like pack it in real tight and like
You
hit
gotta
it
get
with a
the
blow
nitty-gritty.
dryer. Hit it with a blow dryer. You
How
know?
out of resources would you have to be to use your own shit sand and your own shit diarrhea sand?
I mean, we'll find out within our lifetimes, right?
I fucking hope not.
God, I hope not too.
Holy
Speaking
fucking
of-
Say that
uh,
now. This guy's preparing for the future.
Speaking
Yeah.
of eating, though, there's this video going around the internet right now of this old man going up to
Oh,
a
man.
salad bar in, like, let's say a Kroger's or a grocery store, and he's just fucking trying it with the ladle in his mouth, and he just puts the ladle back. How do you feel about this, guys?
what a piece of shit.
I feel like if I saw this man, not only would I film him, I would be confronting him. Like, what? Are you fucked in the head, bud?
This isn't a fucking like homeless person that snuck into Kroger's with his hair's naturally dreaded to his beard on accident and he smells like puke. This dude's got like nice new shoes on and like nice clothes and shit.
Yeah.
Got a bag full of groceries in his hand, just up to the salad bar, not even looking. He doesn't even do the double take where he looks left and then he looks right.
No shifty eyes, nothing.
Make sure the coast is clear. This man's just like, yep, this soup ladle's just for my mouth
The
right
community
Is-
soup hole.
Is he wearing knockoff Yeezys?
now. Yeah, that's what it
Is
looks
he?
like. But he's an old
You know,
man.
a
They're-
lot
they're
of old
probably-
people wear Yeezys, which is really weird.
Is he bourgeoisie or is he like just poor man sampling? Like he's
Poor
already
man sample.
he's already got a bag in his hand. Like, do you think he brought that bag in with him?
This
No,
fucking
but
psycho,
no.
right
That dude's-
above him are cups that he could use. He could fill a cup up and drink it out the cup.
Yeah,
but no, he
right?
was like, this is my
It's-
ladle. This might as well be my house, my kitchen and shit, that I'm just going to fucking stick
See,
my
like-
dirty mouth on it.
That like I don't know if this is right, but this is why I feel like communism wouldn't work. There's always gonna be people just like
Take
using
advantage.
the ladle, using the ladle when it's not the ladle for your mouth. It's the ladle for every cup.
Yeah, fucking, because some people are just sociopaths. And this
Doesn't-
guy has got to be a fucking sociopath. To be just so removed from the empathy of others that you would fucking go to a public, like, a store where people can fucking see you do this, and then just right in the middle, just be scooping fucking food right into your mouth.
This
mean-
makes me not trust like any buffet, you know.
You
Like,
fucking shouldn't.
because have I ever told the story in the podcast of my friend who's a health inspector? I won't say his name, but
Oh,
I found
boy.
The shit roof?
Yes.
the shit roof.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
one of the
Oh,
first
boy.
couple episodes.
It's a
Yeah.
legendary story.
Tell it again. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I'm going to tell it real quick. Sorry for those who've heard it before. So my friend used to be, or he is, a health inspector. I'm not going to say his name or blah, blah, blah. But there is a Chinese restaurant that was getting a lot of complaints of people getting sick. And so they had the health inspector obviously called on them, and then they went there. They couldn't find anything out of the ordinary at all on why people were getting sick. But somehow the food was contaminated of some sort. But so, I mean, the restaurant stayed open, though. I don't know how that happened. I don't know that part of the story, unfortunately. But eventually people, since they were getting so sick, they decided to come back, and they found out things were being dropped from the ceiling into the food in the buffet. So they did some investigating. They went up into the attic, and turns out the restaurant was raising chickens in the ceiling, and they were shitting and pissing so much that their feces was leaking through the ceiling into the fucking food that people were eating.
Oh my god, what a bunch of pieces of shit! Like, just
What
to
the
have-
fuck?
Hey, I mean, we're all marching towards dystopia. You gotta make the most of your space, right?
Yeah, and there was other things that I heard. Go on.
Think about all of the economics of that. Like, all right, I believe in free range chickens and all that, but like, if you have chickens in your attic,
Like with
like-
asbestos and...
yeah, I mean, like, so long as they're alive. I'm talking from like a capitalist point of view. Like,
Do you think they were... Like, I don't know if they were selling the chickens. Like, what were they doing with them? They had to.
I mean, they had to have been slaughtering them and like cooking them, unless it was like, you know,
Probably farming eggs.
some sort of like very misguided rescue, some sort of very poor chicken rescue where it's like, contact this person on Craigslist if you want to adopt a chicken. That's my only other explanation, other than like they have to be chopping up those chickens in the ceiling,
Jesus.
Harvesting eggs.
harvesting eggs.
Where are they
Lots of
slaughtering them?
stuff.
For sure upstairs with the other
In the
chickens.
attic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Put up
yeah.
all the other chickens because they're sick fucks. God damn.
I mean,
It's
like,
crazy.
I at least hope that the people that own that place were also living in it, because think about
And then killed.
that. Eventually killed.
Then they burn the whole restaurant down with a minute.
Oh man, like, you ever heard of like that Facebook page, Humans of Late Capitalism? Or
No.
the concept of late capitalism is essentially like finding evidence of when you reach a stage in capitalism where it no longer works and it's broken fundamentally as a system. And you can find that through how the products are marketed towards you or how it's affecting certain people. So, like, ultimate late capitalism, having a restaurant serving chicken with your chickens raised in the attic where you slaughter them and you also live. That is so much more economically feasible, but also the greatest premise for a indie horror film that I've thought of in the last like 15 minutes.
Interesting.
Eh.
Dude, I'd like to hear more about the horse cave, though. I mean, that sounds fascinating in itself.
Makes me think. Horse caves make me think of what countries you can marry a dog in for some reason.
Yeah, what's up with that? What country can you marry your dog in?
I think I said, like, you know, we're all animals at heart.
Yeah, we really are. Would you marry your dog? Do you have a dog?
Nah, I have a wiener dog.
Would you marry your dog?
Nah, she's a bitch.
Would
Oh,
you
in
ever would you ever
India.
kiss your mom or your dog?
Neither.
It says in India you can marry your dog. I'm setting this up to let Luke know because he's been wanting to announce that he wants to marry Din, and I want to break this news on the podcast.
Congratulations!
Yeah, congratulations, Luke. You can go to India. I'm sure a flight could be. I mean,
Did
quick
my
18-hour
dog tell you he was planning on proposing? Because this is the first time hearing about it, bud.
Wow.
If your dog proposed to you, would you marry him?
Yeah, probably. Dad's a
Yeah.
sweet boy.
Do you have to buy the ring for him?
Yeah, what kind of dog ring would you fashion for your dog? Or have you already fashioned for when your dog...
Dog
Clearly-
cock ring?
Because I'm sure
clearly-
Luke is anticipating that the technology evolved to the point to where eventually he can talk to Den, and hopefully Den will want to marry him by that point.
Clearly, you wouldn't get a dog a fucking ring, bud. You would get him a special collar.
A special collar? I think
Yeah.
you're just trying to be a cheap fuck, Luke. I think that you don't want
I
to
mean, I
give...
guess it makes sense.
How
Yeah,
the
I
fuck would
think
you
that
put
makes
a ring
sense.
on a dog, you dummy?
No,
when
you
you
put a
have
collar.
a perfectly already have a circular object placed on them.
Instead of a tag, you put the wedding band around the collar.
What if you just get a really, 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 really small collar and put it on one of its paws?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
Luke.
would probably
Yeah, do
fuck
that.
its walking up.
No, we've just
I
walked
mean-
like he has a sock in his hand or some shit.
It's
you know?
purely ornamental.
You're
You
not
wouldn't,
supposed to
like-
put socks on animals.
Don't you want your dog to have the wedding
would
of
agree
his
with that.
dreams?
Huh?
Don't...
Don't I want my dog to have the wedding of his dreams?
yeah.
How do you picture this going down?
And when, like, you throw the bouquet, like, it could be a chew toy bouquet. It's all squeaky, like a squeaky flower bouquet that the female dogs could catch, and
Have you
that's the next one that their owner's gonna marry.
But I throw it and he catches it anyways.
In his mouth.
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry to shoehorn that in there. I just wanted to announce Luke's marriage to his dog.
I
thought
do
that it
love
was
my
a-
dog. I
I
didn't
thought it
know
was
I
a-
was getting married to him.
thought it was a beautiful thing. Luke, you don't have to lie. I mean, we accept you in all forms of like yourself. And
Dude, if you're into dog
If you
dick,
guys
you're
have
into
met
dog
Dan,
dick.
if you guys met Dan, you would then know he's the best dog in the world.
yeah, it's so good that you'd want to spend an eternal
The rest of your
relationship.
life
Yeah, the rest of your life.
Cody, if you
So,
ever owned a
death
dog,
do
I'm
us
sure
part.
at some point you also wish that dog lived forever.
So, do you think that you're going to have your puppies naturally or adopt?
Yeah,
how
what's
does
the-
that happen?
what's the
Like,
plan?
are you
We were
gonna-
two
thinking
male
about,
genitalia.
Are you going to go to a shelter or are you going to go to a rescue?
Semination. We were talking about semination.
Insemination. Take
Yeah.
Luke's fucking ginger jizz and mix it with dog jizz and throw it inside of a.
a ginger dog combo human.
Do you think that any dog infused with ginger blood would inherently be a Jack Russell Terrier?
I guess that would be true.
Or a chihuahua.
Does that make sense?
Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
Just a mean little chihuahua. Interesting.
Okay.
Anyways,
Chihuahuas
that's fucking hilarious.
stereotypically are Mexican, you fools. You're failing at your
Don't be
comedy.
racist, Luke. We're just
God,
talking about
we're just
marrying
talking-
your dog. You don't have to bring all your neo-Nazi
God.
beliefs into this. I mean, I don't agree with you on any of that stuff. I mean, I think that it's wrong, but I respect your
Neo-Nazi?
different. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You're marrying a dog.
Yeah, you're marrying. Of course, you're a Nazi. If you're marrying your dog, I mean, that's just.
If
the
I'm
natural.
marrying my dog, I'm probably the most liberal son of a bitch on the planet.
No, Luke. I know how you are behind closed doors. It's all right, buddy. All right, I'm sorry, Ethan. We're completely fucking talking about fucking dogs and
Yeah,
marrying.
sorry.
them
It
and
kind
stuff.
of delved. Next video.
Oh boy, what a way to start.
Oh, there's lots. There's lots. Just pick something.
Oh, do you want to do the Malice? in
Yeah, let's do
Wonderland?
it.
yeah.
pull
Let's
that
do
shit
was,
out.
Alice in
uh,
Wonderland.
While I'm pulling it up,
personal
set it up,
recommendation.
please.
Yeah. What is this?
I would like to give a quick shout out to Ryan the Duke Rogers, you greasy looking motherfucker, for all the times you got me high and made me watch this horrific thing.
Dude, is this about to be fucky?
It's pretty fucky.
Can you set it up before we play it for our audio listeners?
I don't know the history of it. I just know it's upsetting for me to watch because I can't help
Okay.
but imagine existing in this reality, and this reality is fucking horrific.
I'm thinking like some Watership Down shit's
Is
about
this
to
the right
happen.
video?
Oh yeah, it is.
Okay, let's turn
Yeah.
some volume on. Let's just see what it is.
Okay. Malice in Wonderland.
Where's the bong?
Wait, is that playing through the TV or through the headphones?
Oh, I'm hearing it through the.
I'm hearing it.
Through the headphones?
Yeah.
Okay.
God, Cody, fuck.
You're.
Malice in Wonderland. It doesn't look so scary with little shiny lettering.
I mean, it's scary depending on the person you talk to.
Give it a second, Pat.
It's
You
just
haven't
so
even got
shiny.
2 seconds in. This looks like it's really old. Do you know when this is from?
I think the video description says that it's from the 70s, but like I haven't looked into the history of this very much at all.
Shh, what is it? It's a cartoon.
What the fuck?
I don't even know how to describe the visuals. Just look up Malice in Wonderland on YouTube.
What the?
Oh, what? Something, a vagina dimension? More vaginas.
This reminds me of what they were playing in the background in the boat scene of the Willy Wonka movie. Fucking.
I do.
Dude,
need
this
to
is
watch
a
this on LSD.
Bad acid trip.
No.
Oh,
it's
no,
not.
this is
No,
a-
it's
Is that a
not.
dick?
No, this is a nightmare DMT trip. This video
good
is a
time.
culmination of my nightmares.
This is a good time.
This is a good time.
This is what
Yep.
Luke likes to watch when he's tripping his
It
fucking
is.
dick off.
This
He
is
wants
exactly what I
something
like
that-
to watch.
something that's gonna scare the shit out of him.
Mm-hmm.
He showed me videos like horror shit that I don't like watching when I'm sober.
Alright.
He's like, yeah, I like to take fucking 3 hits of acid and watch this shit.
So, one of the only people I would ever identify as a sociopath, he would do acid and smoke spice, and he would watch these. He would watch these videos of Albert Hoffman talking about LSD, but
Mhm.
it's like just all like echoing and distorted and almost like screaming and authoritarian, which is really weird for Albert Hoffman. But like,
He was just a scientist.
I mean, he said that these videos were videos that he found online that were supposed to be like related to MK Ultra or whatever, which I mean, if he's a sociopath, you don't have to take anything he says at face value. But either way, it's like you watch it when you're high, and it's like, why the fuck would you ever want to watch this? Let alone watch it when you're like under, in a very vulnerable state of mind.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure
up.
it's perfect for me. Then.
We've got a real life sociopath right here.
Yeah,
like
the guy fucking laughs at pain. Horrible, embarrassing pain.
He doesn't just laugh. He cackles like a hyena before it eats its fucking dinner. And
then
shit.
it, like shits out a shit chalk.
I like to watch really, really, I guess, mentally terrifying things.
Have you
when I'm
guys-
on LSD?
Have you guys? I disagree with that on an existential level.
Let's get into this shit.
Oh man. Whew.
Have the debate there. Have the debate. What's the debate?
Yeah, argue his ass.
So like I've had psychedelic experiences where all right, so you guys like heard of the NPC meme or like seen that on Facebook or anything where it's about like making fun of people for not being able to make rational decisions or like actually have their own opinions, but rather like parroting what others do because it seems like the proper way of acting.
Yeah.
No, but it's an understandable concept. I haven't seen it, but
It's-
I get it.
It's a concept that I feel like is kind of like a meta-modernist take on zombies, philosophical zombies. The concept of like
Pea zombies?
yeah, philosophical
okay.
zombies. It's an argument in philosophy where essentially could there be beings that seem completely identical to humans but are completely void of souls, and if so, like how could you actually like figure that out, or like humans that don't actually have consciousness. So there's been a lot of like shit on Reddit and 4chan and whatever else related to the NPC meme, and also going into the philosophical zombie concept where it's like, what is your conscious experience? Do you have an internal monologue? Do you have words going through your mind all the time? Are you actually thinking in sentences? Are you thinking in visuals of things you will do in the next like few seconds? And you can't say that anyone is right, but it's a very strange dichotomy in like the way of viewing consciousness. So
Exploring that concept when I was on psychedelic drugs would drive me fucking crazy. Like, I would go insane trying to figure that out while I was on drugs.
yeah, so like whenever I think of like psychedelic experimentation, I think of it only from my perspective of conscious experience and what I would like my conscious experience to be altered to, or what I'm comfortable with it being altered to. So part of that is not like willingly engaging in super intense visuals or, you know, works of art that I'm not comfortable with, which I mean, like, that's a huge sliding scale when you're actually on psychedelics. But I have like, the way I would describe my conscious experience is that I have train of thought, which for me is like words in my mind, me thinking in sentences about various things, and also the visual consciousness, like thinking of what things will happen in the future as actual visual moments, thinking in that regard, and also thinking of like, you know, daydreaming, whatever else. So while on some psychedelics I've had experiences of being incapable of controlling what my actual conscious visual creations are, so that means that my mind just like fills the void when I close my eyes and puts whatever subconscious projections it has in that place, in that, you know, black void. And sometimes those things are horrific and appalling, and having experienced that without having the actual like perception or feeling of being able to control it, just like having these like horrific things flash through my mind without my ability to intercept it. Personally, when I've experienced that on psychedelics, that's kind of damaging in the moment, in that vulnerable state of mind. I feel like it can have like a long-term like detrimental debasing of who you are or what your core experience is. Do you?
I think in summary, he's saying that you should be allowed to marry your dog.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm fucking around. I know exactly what you're saying because I had friends. I had stopped doing psychedelics when I was like 19 or whatever.
Because you fucked up and abused it too early.
Well, yeah, I did a lot, and I fucking did weird research chemicals and all kinds of weird shit when I was a kid. But
everybody that's done LSD has done research chemicals.
For sure, because you never know what you're getting and if it's pure or not unless you're a chemist or you have a test kit on hand. But point is, on that subject, I've seen, like, I was watching a documentary on Edison and I'm sorry to cut in with this, but I wanted to jab my shit in real fast. I was watching a documentary on Edison and Tesla and like how they had used AC and DC current, and Tesla developed AC current, and Edison was in then this fucking thing to prove that it was dangerous so that he could keep marketing his DC current. And the way that they did that was to electrocute an elephant. And my friends who were on acid were in there with me.
Fuck.
It was a circus elephant that had killed somebody, and this
Still
elephant.
fucked.
Yeah, so they electrocute him or whatever, and they show the video of the elephant getting electrocuted. My friends were in there watching this Edison and Tesla documentary with me, and when they saw that, their whole fucking everything about them shifted, and they like both their eyes welled up with tears, and they just looked at each other, and they just ran out of the room, like, because they couldn't fucking do it. So I think that's probably on some level what you're saying, right? Like, you don't want to watch something that's going to affect you in that way when you're tripping balls, because it might be something that sticks with you for longer than just that fucking 12-hour experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only speaking from the experience of having gone through the psychedelic experience more times than I would recommend most people pursuing it. And that's just my personal advice, is not to ingest things that are going to corrode your own psyche in the moment, because those corrosions of your mind in the psychedelic experience will last. They'll stay with you, and it's not fun. I can't speak for you because I don't know what your conscious experience is. I don't know what your psychedelic experiences are. I don't know what you carry with you day-to-day life, but like, I just know how it's affected me and how my experiences have changed the way that I look at psychedelics.
When I'm taking my LSD and I'm watching all the horrific stuff or the dark shit that I don't, when I'm watching it, I don't necessarily try to find myself in it that I'm watching. I'm almost looking at it as a piece of art, and I'm trying to depict it as to what it means as its whole to itself. And if it matches me on a positive note, or I can actually find a flaw in myself in it, then yeah, I'll dwell on it. But for the most part, I don't, because like, I'll watch Alan Tutorial. That's just weird and dark on a very different level. Unedited footage of a bear. That's weird and dark on a very different level.
Wait, unedited footage of a bear?
Yes.
Doing what?
Okay, so it's really only unedited footage of a bear for about 20-something odd seconds or longer, and then it completely diverts to a commercial about a drug. And this drug, it tells you it's supposed to cure all of this stuff, but it doesn't tell you exactly what it's fixing. It's just telling you that it's a wonderful miracle drug and you should be taking it. But what you don't notice in the background is like the girl who's driving the car in the commercial, her in the back seats of her car, it's riddled with the medicine boxes. Like, she's hopelessly addicted. And as she's driving through her neighborhood, there's like a body wrapped in plastic, and police taking a man away, and he's screaming, "It wasn't him, it was the other person, it wasn't him." And you know, it slowly ensues to like the medicine. It's just like a placebo effect, and it's not really curing anything. You're just taking it and hoping that it'll get rid of the darkness inside of you. But she like eventually kills her kids and then herself, and it's
I love his reaction to it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's
So-
fucking psychopath. Whatever.
All right. So
Yeah, let me laugh at someone getting hurt.
I can actually totally get behind that,
yeah.
because during the break I was talking about the levels of the psyche as described in analytical psychology, like Carl Jung's belief of the shadow of human consciousness, or rather the human subconscious mind. And the greatest way to actually exist with your shadow and to move through your shadow is to projected through your artwork. So the shadow is seen as like the ultimate source of creative power and creative fuel, because it's everything negative within you that is within all of reality, that is something that you can actually explore and something that you can like process. So
A good way Luke could manifest that would be like marrying his dog. Or...
Sorry, getting too real for the bands.
Oh no,
It's fine, dude.
No, I am loving this.
Dude, I just sprinkle in humor. I'm not trying to like take it away.
We're not trying
what
to take
you're
it
saying.
down. We're just trying to say that Luke wants to marry his dog.
Yeah,
No
I
big
mean,
deal, dude.
I mean, that's an accepted point. I'm just trying not to get like too far into like point counterpoint, but I do enjoy the point counterpoint about personal experiences with psychedelics and like intensity.
I want to ask, like, so you said you've done DMT. Now, I've never done any psychedelic at all, but what is it like? What was the most intense DMT trip you've had? I want to know what was going on in your mind or what you saw at that time. Like, what was it like to break through?
So you have the concept of blasting off, which is actually like moving beyond your body and existing in a plane without the physical construct of the body. And I reached what you would call like a gatekeeper, which is this archetype in DMT trips where you are about to move from your physical body to the ether of reality beyond your body. And what it is, after smoking and all that, I was with a friend. We were playing music, so music was my way of actually staying set in the room, having my grounding in what the present moment was, so that way I wouldn't just like fly off into oblivion. And after doing it, I just closed my eyes, and as soon as I closed my eyes, immediately just geometric dome of these shapes just shifting through each other and creating the depth of space that actually exists when you close your eyes. And
it's not like rubbing your eyes too hard when you're tired or some shit and you just start seeing some crazy colored shapes. Or...
No, it was, I closed my eyes and I was seeing the plane of a different world, or at least my conscious mind was constructing something that was completely imperceptible with, sober life.
It's got to be hard to put this shit into words, because a lot of times they compare DMT to, like, I don't know how much proof that they have that dreams directly come from DMT or the pineal gland in the center of your brain, because proving it would require cutting into a live human brain, which is completely unethical. But they have some circumstantial evidence that that's what it's caused by. But a phenomenon that happens with both DMT trips and dreams is, as soon as it's over, you usually typically start to forget a lot of the experience and start to lose a lot of it. And they say it's because the experience can almost be traumatic for the brain, so it immediately starts repressing these things as fast as they can. Did you do anything to preserve the memory of the trip as soon as you left? Like write any of this down when you got done? Or
no, because I didn't have any negativity with the experience whatsoever. It was my 6th time doing it to get to that gatekeeper.
I don't even mean negativity when I said like a traumatic experience for your
like
brain.
remembering it.
No, I mean it's still just clear in my mind, and it has been since the day it happened. It was over a year ago. It was my 6th time doing it. Every time I had done it before then, right before you actually like spark the bowl, there's always that like cold sweat on your skin and that anxiety that comes with, am I about to leave my body? Am I about to experience a semblance of death? But actually be able to piece together something from it in the moment, in the present moment of experiencing it. And so after doing it the 5 times before, I was able to get a good grasp of like what I was actually physically experiencing with my body, what was happening to my mind in the moment, my slow like breach through that veil of what our waking reality is into seeing what all can exist beyond that. So the sixth time I did it, when I closed my eyes, I remember I had the song playing, and I was able to tell exactly where I was in physical reality because of it. It was my anchor. If I focused on it, it would become sharp and clear to find. If I didn't focus on it, then it just became like I could perceive the waves that it was making moving through the air to reach my eardrums.
What song was it? Angel of Death by Slayer?
It's not what you would expect.
I'm just kidding. What was it?
Devil in a New Dress.
I'm not familiar with it.
It's by a crazy person, a crazy Gemini person that
Who's it by?
is in the media a lot that I don't want to talk about. Kanye West.
Oh, okay.
I was about to say, is it Kanye?
Yeah.
Well, let's put that shit on.
Let's hear your anchor, if that's all right.
It's gonna sound so ignorant with
It's
everything
not like
I'm about to
scoopity
say.
poopity
Nah.
scoop scoop.
The devil.
I want to listen to that
Did you-
song on drugs.
Yeah, that'd be weird as shit.
Devil in a what?
Devil in a New Dress.
You probably echo in your mind, like just bouncing off the wall.
There's YouTube videos
And
of
this
that
was-
song on loop for like 4 hours.
This was the only thing that you had looping the entire time while you were on this?
I
Rick
mean,
Ross?
It was pretty much the entirety of the experience was this one song playing.
Okay, let's hear a little
Let's
piece
hear
of
a
it.
little bit of Ultimate Cars.
All you have to hear is just the beat. The beat itself is so gorgeous.
Interesting. I gotta say, this is a weird song to have a spiritual experience with,
Right?
but I understand. I get you. It just has a different vibe for you.
First thing is, don't say spiritual experience, say psychedelic experience. because
Psychedelic.
That was one thing that I had to teach myself was, like, you can't define psychedelic experiences as anything greater than what your actual reality is, because essentially what's happening is your perception of reality is being altered by chemicals. It's not a representation of a truer reality. I mean, you can draw great revelations from it, but I mean, most drugs inspire some revelatory thoughts. So
I think that, like, me personally, it's like these drugs can manifest a reality or like things inside yourself or truths within yourself that, whether or not it's the manifestation of a chemical inside of your brain, it doesn't matter if that's a chemical reaction. Like, it's still your reality and it's still a truth about yourself, and it could be defined as a spiritual experience. I think that it depends on who's using it, why you're using it, what experience you have, if you learn something, if you don't. I think that it's very person to person. I don't think that you should call it like one or the other, but I don't think that it necessarily isn't a spiritual experience for some people sometimes, right?
I mean, I consider
yeah.
smoking pot in a way spiritual because it may alter my mind, and obviously it's a chemical imbalance, but I feel like I have a different perspective on life than most, and I consider that in my own sense spiritual. But I mean, you're like everyone says, drugs affect everyone differently.
yeah, I think it's just a slippery slope to try to equate spirituality to drugs. I actually had an argument with somebody one time about whether or not religion predated drug use, and I think that it's important to separate the concept of the psychedelic experience from what you would call a spiritual experience. You can have a spiritual experience any fucking time in your life.
Yeah, with anything.
But what if that's
yeah.
triggered by other chemical reactions going on inside of your brain?
But the dangerous thing, the slippery slope, is when you start to equate spirituality with drug use. Like in a Brave New World where the lowest caste of society all take the same drug that provides them with this perfect spiritual euphoria and connection to like the almighty everything.
So you're saying
I'm
the
not talking
problem-
about that. I'm talking about just getting to know yourself.
I think
I'm
he's
not talking
saying-
about
Oh,
God.
well,
Or,
I think he's saying that
yeah.
it's a... there's-
Okay, so getting to know yourself versus getting to know spirituality. Like, spirituality is a very expansive word, but like getting to know yourself, like psychedelics are great for, you know, journeying through the levels of your psyche and actually like getting to the core of who you are as an individual. But as far as equating the self with the spirit, or at least with what you ultimately are and what your placement in reality is and what your connection to all of greater reality is as we can perceive it or not perceive it, I don't think it's very wise for people getting into psychedelics to try to think of all psychedelic experiences as spiritual.
I agree with that.
Right.
100% agree with that. It's dangerous to say that these are like it's a spiritual experience and a tab of acid. Like it is dangerous to say that, especially to people that haven't tried it before. And like you might not get anything out of that, but it can be a gateway to a spiritual experience. It doesn't but it isn't going to be every time. So I don't know that I completely agree that it can't be a spiritual experience.
No, it definitely can be a spiritual experience. It's just a matter of not treating every psychedelic experience as purely spiritual and reality defining, because your reality is changing every day. Your personal reality is dictated by the functions of your body, and your body's constantly changing throughout time, so your reality is going to be different.
Definitely.
I lost my point. I was going to say something related to what you just said, but we've been talking about psychedelics for so long.
Talking about the dangers of associating psychedelic drugs with marrying
your dog
every time. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely dangerous. Like last time I did PCP, I ended up marrying a Chihuahua, but it had a German accent, so I don't agree with the stereotypes.
Yeah, I
Right?
agree. Well, just because Luke's a
This
racist
is-
doesn't mean we all have to be.
This is a free world. Dogs
Now
can
I'm a
exist in any
racist?
country.
Chihuahuas could be, dog marrying racist. We all know, but it's fun.
Like
Our-
interracial dog marriage. You know how hot of a
Since
topic that is in
when?
Canada right now?
No, I don't.
Alberta.
I don't actually.
The Albertans are fighting over it.
Good lord.
What the yeah, good lord indeed.
Good lord.
Jordan Peterson's somewhere doing a dissertation about it right now.
Oh man,
Furiously.
that dude is.
How do you feel about that?
Controversial.
Oh man,
How do you
very
feel about-
controversial topic.
Yeah.
Would you shake
it's a
his
hard
hand
thing
or
to
would you
just-
slap him?
If I were to meet him, I would probably just talk to him as an individual. I think if I met most humans that ever existed, I would probably just shake their hand outright, because that's what people do.
who is Jordan Peterson, for those who don't know, in a brief summary?
Isn't he a professor from university in Toronto? He's like a professor of psychology, and he's all about like how
Incels.
people
Doesn't he talk about incels a lot too?
I think
talks about all
he's-
kinds of stuff.
I think he's a patron saint of incels.
Vol cells are where it's at.
what is incels and
voluntary
incels?
Involuntary celibates and voluntary celibates.
Right.
Is it bad that I know about like this much without even like
No.
really explaining it?
No.
No, not at all.
Why would it be bad?
I was just
See,
asking you
it's
to
Bad to be
talk about it for
knowledgeable
those who
about
don't
things.
know.
I think that is the funniest type of label ever. And
Yeah.
so,
Incels?
like,
It's
why would you
stupid.
rally behind that?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just try to actually like make changes in your life? I don't know.
Everyone
else's
Everybody's-
fault.
everybody's
because
different.
they're
they're
weak
nice
ass-
guys and they should just already have girlfriends. Duh.
Duh.
I
Because they're
mean-
they're weak ass little bitch dudes, and there's no better like words for it.
If you are,
nice guy.
That's what it is.
Why won't you fuck me?
There's weak ass bitch ass people out there. and
She's
that's
supposed to
just
suck
the
it
reality
after.
of 7 billion people. Some of them are not capable of. Like they're gonna define themselves as an incel. I mean, I see your look on your face, like you don't want to just boil it down to that much, and there's probably more layers to this
No,
onion, but
I
I really
mean-
don't think that there is. Like I think that some people are just
if
weak,
you ever get
broken people.
if you ever get bored and you're on Reddit, go to incel tears. That's always funny. Just watching incels just completely.
Not
cry
everybody's
on it.
supposed to make it. Some people are supposed to get eaten by lions and bears and cheetahs.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not well, I mean, I guess fortunately, that's not the reality that we live in, because we live in safe
Yeah.
civilizations away from these things. But
No, but we
these
have
are the
cigarettes
people
and
that
alcohol and-
right, but I'm
Vices.
just saying these are the people that in different times in the world they get eaten or they get killed or they don't live to breed because they're silly people that just they don't have any will within them to do something good with their life. I guess people
Yes,
can
Ethan.
change, and I like the idea of people being able to change.
Ethan's got something to say.
Virtual reality exists for a reason, and it exists for a large portion of the population, and it will continue to exist to replace all of
Porn?
all of the empty lives that are deprived of
freedom.
various. No, I mean,
Would
not
you
so
ever?
much freedom as just deprived of various forms of pleasure that they cannot seek out themselves and derive themselves.
Would
Are
you
you
ever
talking about the singularity right now?
No, I just think it's more about population control.
Would you ever fuck a robot, like a sex doll robot?
Nah. Nah.
Never?
Nah.
Okay, I'm just curious.
I mean, I would. But
I mean,
moving on.
like, there's a difference between, like, dry humping a couch when you're, like,
Ooh.
in 6th grade versus fucking a imitation human. That's, like, a way different level of interacting with that which is not existent as far as we understand. Like,
But if you're dumb like me and you don't think things through as well as you do all the time, as it seems like you really,
You get
you
drunk,
really,
you just want to fuck?
yeah, I'm just like, well, I do have this sex android I can put my penis inside of.
Do
Like,
I
don't-
stick my dick here?
wasn't there a comedian that was like, maybe Dane Cook. Am I about to quote Dane Cook?
Go ahead.
Quote him.
Upsetting. There was a comedian that was like talking about how there's like a hole in his wall, and every time he like goes past it, he's like, someday I'm gonna get drunk and I'm gonna end up fucking that hole in the wall.
Oh my god, I have one of these tabs pulled up of some guy who got his dick stuck fucking like a bench.
How applicable?
It's so interesting. It's not that. That's the squirrel who got his nuts stuck in between two boards of wood. He can't get out. How does that
Why
happen?
would this dickhead filming him help this
He
poor
did. He
squirrel out?
did. But I mean, what are you supposed to do? Just slide the ball sack out?
Yes.
Yes, you slide it
How does that happen?
upwards.
Look at him spinning around. He's gonna fucking twist that fucker off.
That is the most heartwarming way to get rabies.
Yeah, I
Trying
mean,
to help a squirrel get his nuts
Dude.
out of a bind.
I think he's fucked.
You were making a point though about fucking a hole in the wall. You talking about Dane Cook's joke?
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't fault anybody else for wanting to fuck a robot, but you know,
It's not in your decidable future.
no,
Not in his wheelhouse of
no.
turn-ons.
I like
Real people.
conversation. I mean, I like people that actually think.
Yeah, I get it. I'm one of the dummies that don't think. But I'm just being honest about who I am as a person, because I know that I get drunk enough and lonely enough. I'm gonna fuck that android if I have the sex android in my house. It's probably yeah, for sure.
I think the reason I don't really think about it very much is because I know I'll never have the money to afford a hyper advanced sex robot with AI and all that
Mhm.
to worry about the ethics.
What if you just get one, like when you?
So how do you feel about this guy? This Honorable Darwin's mentioned from my hometown back in 2008. A guy fucked a hole in a sit-up bench in a public park. Dick got stuck and called for help. Diameter of the hole was less than 2.5 centimeters, and the guy survived. How do you feel about? I mean, why?
How
You
many
just got to
inches
think
is
about
that?
like cold showers and like sports and your grandma naked. And
I
you
mean-
just
Well, I'm gonna
fucking
fuck some. I'd rather not masturbate. I'm
pull
gonna
that piece
stick my
out.
dick
See,
in a piece
like-
of metal.
I can't imagine like remaining hard in that moment
Yeah.
because that looks like metal. I feel like that would just like slice right down.
Yeah, it
through
looks
the
like
meat.
fucking the hole of a pop can. Like, why would you
Yeah.
ever do that? That looks like it's gonna rip your dick right off.
Well,
Yeah.
when you're fucking homeless and lonely.
This man
Like-
has no fucking self-preservation
Dude, just
instincts
jack
at
off.
all.
How do you
Just
remain
jack off.
like? How do you remain hard if you're bleeding? Like, was he not at all like? Did he have like dick bruise or something? Did he not get cut?
Oh, I'm sure there's some damage. Scroll down a
I
little
don't
bit, Cody.
know. I mean, what are we gonna find? People that fucking have 1,000 jokes on here?
When I hear stories like this, I think of the end of the world. Only a few scattered survivors left, and one has his dick stuck in a park bench, and help will never arrive. That's hilarious to me. Sorry.
People are stupid as fuck.
Yeah, they are.
All right. Well,
All right. Well, so anyways, thank you so much for coming on, Ethan. It was
Yeah.
fucking awesome.
What
Really informative and a lot deeper than I expected us to get into it. You're a smart ass dude. Your fucking book show, your hard ass work in it. You post a ton of information almost every single day from what I've seen on your Facebook groups. So join that shit, people. Plug that.
Oh, primitive war discussion group. If you want to talk about primitive war and dinosaurs killing people and all the things that go along with that.
What's not to love?
Or just look up Primitive War on Facebook or Amazon if you want to get a good dosage of humans struggling with the morality of death and war while also evading dinosaurs in the darkness.
Sounds fucking wild.
It
Seriously.
really does.
Primitive War sounds so fucking interesting. Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, dude. Anywhere we can follow you.
I do have a Facebook page called Ethan the Author.
Ethan, the author.
Be
That's
sure
all
to
I
check
can
that out,
remember
folks.
about.
Are you
that
on
point.
like Instagram or?
I mean, I have an Instagram, but like that's just personal shit.
Gotcha.
Like, you know,
Where can we find your
I
books?
don't talk to people. All my books are on Amazon.
Fuck yeah.
If
Well-
you guys, we're actually going to wrap this up in a very different way than we normally do. If you guys want a little example of exactly how Ethan's book, it's Cronus, I don't want to mess this up, Cronus of Doom?
Cronus
Sodom.
Cronus Sodom. I'm sorry. I got really high before we did the second half of the podcast. He's going to read chapter 5 from this. Ethan, go. Oh, Luke, go ahead.
Before we close this out, be sure to follow the Shit Talking Cunts podcast. Be sure to follow the Between the Covers podcast.
My Sound Clothing.
Yeah, My Sound Clothing, support JoJo, and be sure to join the Bastard Sermon group on Facebook.
Bastard Sermon Podcast Group. All right, go ahead. Take it over, sir.
So, most books have a foreword. My new horror novella Chronos Sodom, has a author's forewarning instead of a foreword. Chronos Sodom began as a free writing exercise known as shadow scribing. The intention is to translate the worst of the subconscious through focused free writing. Each chapter of Chronos Sodom began with a simple sentence outline. Protagonist arrives in Cuba, protagonist meets Scarlet Woman, etc. The story evolved with each chapter written. This project was written over the course of some 20 hours, roughly 2 hours per writing session. Minimal revisions were implemented to retain the authenticity and raw voice of the story. Chronos Sodom is not suitable for anybody under the age of 18 or anybody with a weak constitution. This is an exploration of the most heinous, deranged, and depraved potentials for humanity possible. Do not treat the story as a reflection of my own views or feelings. Chronos Sodom is not meant to be a reflection of anything other than humanity's collective shadow. This is a story of human nature. You have been warned. So I
remember reading that as I went in, and I was like, "What the fuck am I in for right
Yeah.
now?"
So I am actually going to jump ahead to a very upsetting chapter, probably the most upsetting thing I've ever personally written.
Oh, I'm excited to hear it.
And I am not going to give any explanation for why things are happening the way they're happening.
Luke, quick, eat these mushrooms.
I am just going to read very quickly and urgently, and hopefully this page 45, beginning of chapter 5, out of a 78-page book is enough. Chapter 5, Albert Fisher of Men. Eternal vermin hunger consumes Havana. The junkies succumb to their savage appetites, cannibalizing the weak, slipping their chipped incisors through the flesh of those that collapse with exhaustion within the orgies. They succumb to their eternal weakness and transmutate in their sleep. If only I were so lucky to join them. Sleep never comes. The sky is an ever-churning sea of cement. I can't control the insipid rage that fuels my timeless waking life. The alcohol no longer sedates me. Vials of rum are liquid adrenaline. My heart races faster with every attempt I make to calm my nerves. The cocaine I've pilfered from the mobster cabanas is the only solace I have left. But Kronos knows the way to liberation. The populace festering within Havana changes with every blackout they endure. I watch as they drag themselves into the shadowy fed confines of brothels, bars, and casinos, only to emerge with ripe new deformities. Their spines bow, crawling quadrupeds, lips hanging low like leprous labias. Their jaws contort and protrude like gummy snouts from foreskin sheaths. They're not human. Not anymore, at least. Imagine being a butcher in a slaughterhouse of hogs. You have one job, and despite what empathy can be derived from their twinkling eyes, their blood must be spilt. Throats are slit, skin flayed into wings, breaking open the ribs to allow the release of the lungs that fall and splat like wet sponges against the ground. Bayonets bisect Germans as they plead penance. Nobody is innocent. I'm wandering through a concentration camp turned sandbox. I'm the only true being in this city of caverns and hovels. I'm surrounded by plague rats, mewling and moaning for sustenance. Their numbers have slimmed considerably. I've been working long, endless hours. My watch winks at me, the only movement allowed by immobile time. The junkies drag their dead into the city's streets and burn them upon awakening from their slumber. They seem to relish in the act. They'll consume the flesh of the living, but the dead are sacred. The Scarlet Woman watches over every pyre pile. When she sees me, she retreats within the ashen clouds and reemerges atop the highest buildings, out of reach from my fishhook fingers. The things Kronos would have me do to her. I chase away the rodent junkies from the burning bodies. I kick them aside. They weigh less than half-empty sandbags. Their bones break against my bile-buffed shoes. The junkies whimper and hiss as they scamper away. I'm propelled to the center of the smoldering pits, their sustenance within the flames. I wrap my arms in the skin of the junkies I butcher. It sluices off their bones like melted butter. With my arms wrapped tight in transparent leather, I fling aside the cadavers until I find my meal. Yes, there are children here. I find a dead infant within the fire, drag it free from the tangled limbs, and heave it upon the sooty street. I don't have time to dress the carcass down. The feral junkies are screaming and scratching at me to stop. I swing my elbows, dislodge their distended jaws. Whoever knew a starving vagrant could so easily destroy his fellow man. My incisors strip succulent strips of skin from the carcass. I suck them down, bury my fingers between the bones, break them apart like chicken wings. I can't hide my phallic shame. I gnaw through the cadaver's throat, my palms crushing the ribcage, and boiling blood saturates my throat. My release, ecstasy ensues. The scarlet woman smiles atop a steeple. Mother of abominations, she approves. The junkies are enacting her will. Kronos has stripped every pleasure but this. A junkie heaves itself upon me, male or female, I can't tell. The rat gnaws on my naked torso and I break its neck with a single thrust of my kneecap. I collapse atop the writhing rat, the magnetism takes hold, and I start chewing through the junkie's tattered lips. The tender flesh mashes between my grinding molars. My cock finds an orifice. I squeeze the feral fiend's neck and I heave, thrust, pant, and wheeze with effort. I'm grinding away, finding warmth within the chilling flesh, and I wrap my fist around the junkie's wiry mane. I thrust my pelvis. Worms spiral forth from my urethra, and the junkie's head comes off clean when I tug it back. I'm holding a shriveled, shrunken head. Another orifice, another temporary release. I survive through breaking taboos for Kronos. The junkies are afraid of me. I floss between their thighs with coils of razor wire. I strangle them to death in their sleep. I practice the dismantlement of the once human bodies, an amateur anatomist cleaving cadavers with a throbbing member and lips licked clean of blood by a lapping tongue. Were there a god, I never made his acquaintance. I know I've met Kronos. I'm thankful I have no recollection. I'm the sole entity in this twisted reality. Every other consciousness is a manifestation of Kronos. I'm alone in this city, surrounded by plague rats. I suck the black pus from their festering boils and scrub my teeth clean with their sea-foamed semen. This is the abyss of infinity. I am the manifestation of a man bound to the endless black tides of eternity. Every light is suffocated within the space of Einsof. Kronos waits for me in the dark. I never ended a life in the last great war. I fired my rifle over my head and pretended krauts were coming down from the sky. I couldn't stomach the bloodshed, the concentration camps, the truth of reality. None of this is real. I am the sole architect of my heavenly hell. I'm rotting in an insane asylum. I've died and returned home upon the back of a wraith with wings like sheets of psyllium-haired membranes. Kronos carries me in his tendrils. I'm keeping track of my kills. Over 200 and counting thus far. The tallies of my calendar represent the spines I've slipped free from ravaged human carapaces. I'm no longer human. I retain my shape, my image of God, but the mind that occupies the oil within my skull is no longer mortal. I am above man, God, Alpha and the Omega, and the fullest extent of the Greek alphabet. My words can conjure atom bombs. I feel nothing. I am nothing. The eternal, viral nothing. I'm home.
That was fucking brutal.
And I got deep as fuck.
That was fucking great, Ethan. Thank you so much for coming on our podcast
That
today.
was a fantastic episode, man.
Fucking follow his page.
And buy his books, because
Buy
I
his
sure
fucking
as shit am.
books. Buy those fucking books. Dude, thanks for coming on again. Seriously, you were fucking
Really.
amazing.
My pleasure. You guys are sweet.
You're sweet, dude.
Thanks, man.
Man, my dick is rock hard, boys.
And with that, let's end this bitch.
Yeah. Peace out till next week with Q, motherfuckers. Peace.